For 4 years, my children acted like I no longer existed. Then my son came back demanding $400,000 for his failed business, and when I refused, his wife warned me, old men who refuse to help family have accidents. 2 months later, they discovered my $50 million Manhattan penthouse and hidden fortune. Suddenly, my son was crying for forgiveness, and my daughter-in-law was cooking soup and calling me dad. They thought I was a lonely old man. They didn't know they were walking straight into my trap. This story starts quietly, but it won't leave you unchanged. Before we go any further, drop a comment for me. Have you or someone you know ever faced something like this? Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to read. Some details have been adjusted for storytelling and reflection. The heart of the story, the message, is what I hope stays with you. That morning, a gray Tuesday in March 2023, I sat beneath the oak tree like every morning for 4 years. Black coffee, silence, and the kind of peace you learn to call loneliness. My son's car pulled up to the gate. I hadn't seen him approach in all that time. I am Melvin Whitfield, 74 years old, retired aerospace engineer. I spent 40 years calculating stress loads for satellite infrastructure, and I planted this oak tree with Ruth 47 years ago when we first bought this house in Coral Springs. The tree grew. Our son grew up. Ruth died. The tree remained. The coffee was still hot when my phone rang. Conrad's name on the screen, a name I hadn't seen in 4 years, not since Ruth's funeral when he'd stood at the back of the church and left before the reception. I looked at the screen, then looked up. A silver Toyota was pulling through the gate I'd left open for the lawn service. Conrad Whitfield stepped out first. 35 years old now, my son, though I hardly recognized the man who'd once cried on my shoulder about his first business failure. His face was tight, older than his years. Behind him came Vesper, his wife, 32, her dark blazer and pressed slacks more suitable for a corporate meeting than a family visit. Her eyes moved across the backyard like an appraiser cataloging assets. Dad, Conrad said. Not hello, not how you are, just Dad, flat and transactional. You look well, Vesper added, her smile not reaching her eyes. The house is bigger than I remembered. I set my coffee cup on the small table beside my chair. You haven't been here in 4 years to remember it. Conrad's jaw tightened. We need to talk, now. I stood slowly, feeling my knees protest the Florida humidity even this early in March. Then talk. They didn't wait for an invitation inside. Conrad walked past me toward the back door, Vesper following her heels, clicking on the concrete patio. I followed them into my own house. In the living room, they didn't sit. Conrad stood by the window, hands in his pockets, while Vesper remained near the door as if blocking an exit. The morning sun threw long shadows across the hardwood floors Ruth had insisted we install in 2019, 3 years before the cancer took her. My business failed, Conrad said without preamble. The freight logistics company went bankrupt in February. I said nothing, waited. $300,000 in debt, creditors are circling, we're going to lose our house. Vesper stepped forward. We need $400,000, Dad. You have this house, it's worth at least that. You're 74 years old living here alone. What do you need all this space for? I looked at my son, really looked at him. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd called me crying when his first girlfriend left him, who'd asked me to co-sign his first business loan. Now he stood in my living room, 4 years of silence, broken only by the sound of his desperation. You want me to sell the house? I said. Yes. Conrad's voice had an edge, now sharper. Sell it. Give us the money. Help your family. I haven't heard from you since your mother died, I said quietly. Not on my birthday. Not on Christmas. Not once in 4 years. And now you're here because you need money. We tried, Vesper said quickly. You never answered our calls. You never called. Silence filled the room like a third presence. I looked at my son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, who cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend left him, and saw only a stranger calculating the value of my death. Conrad's face reddened. We're your family. You have a responsibility. A responsibility, I repeated. For 4 years you treated me like I was already dead. Now I'm supposed to liquidate the house I built with your mother so you can pay off business debts. We could lose everything. Conrad's voice rose, cracking slightly. Our house, the kids' school. Don't you care about your grandchildren? I don't know my grandchildren, I said. The words came out harder than I intended. You made sure of that. Vesper's expression shifted, the concern dropping away like a mask removed. Her voice went cold. You're being selfish. You're an old man living alone in a house too big for you. What are you saving it for? You'll be dead in 10 years anyway. I walked to the window, looked out at the oak tree. Ruth and I had planted it the week we moved in, a sapling barely 3 feet tall. Now it towered over the backyard, its branches spreading wide enough to shade half the lawn. 47 years of growth. 47 years of roots going deep into Florida soil. I turned back to face them. "I won't sell the house," I said, "and I won't give you a single penny." The room went still. Conrad's hands clenched into fists. Vesper's eyes narrowed. "Then you're on your own," Conrad said, his voice shaking with rage and something else, fear maybe. "We all are. Don't call us when you're sick and alone and need someone to take care of you." "I haven't called you in 4 years," I said. "I don't plan to start." What kind of man looks at his 74-year-old father 4 years after cutting him out of his life entirely and sees nothing but a solution to debt? Conrad grabbed his keys from his pocket. Vesper was already at the door. She turned back, her voice low and deliberate. "You'll regret this. Old men who refuse to help family, things happen to them. They get confused. They forget to pay bills. They have accidents." It wasn't quite a threat, but it wasn't not a threat either. "Get out of my house," I said. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames on the wall. Through the window, I watched Conrad's silver Toyota reverse too fast down the driveway, tires spitting gravel. The engine roared. Then silence returned, thick and complete. I stood in the middle of the empty living room, hearing Conrad's car engine fade into the Florida morning. My hands weren't shaking. My heart was steady. And I knew with the same engineer's certainty I'd used to calculate stress loads on satellite infrastructure for 40 years, this wouldn't be the last time I saw them. The desperation in Conrad's eyes, the cold calculation in Vesper's, those weren't the faces of people who give up after one refusal. They'd be back. The question wasn't if, it was how. The envelope arrived 6 hours after Conrad's car disappeared down the driveway. Thick paper Alaska postmark, a return address in Anchorage I didn't recognize, and a name I hadn't heard spoken aloud in 40 years, Morris Whitfield. I sat in my study that evening, holding the sealed envelope, tracing the return address with my thumb. Morris Whitfield. My great-uncle. My grandfather's brother. The man who left for Alaska in 1960 after a family fight. Nobody would explain to me the boy who asked too many questions. He never came back. Never called. It became a ghost story we stopped telling. The envelope was heavy official, law firm letterhead embossed in gold. I set it on my desk unopened and stared at it like it might explain itself. My phone rang. Melvin Palmer Delaney, said his voice careful, measured. Palmer had been my attorney for 20 years, handled Ruth's estate when she died, knew my finances down to the last pension check. He was 62, precise as a surgeon, and he never called after 6 p.m. unless something mattered. I know today was difficult with Conrad, but I need to tell you about Morris. The paperwork is complete. Morris Whitfield. I looked at the envelope. My father's uncle, I haven't thought about him since I was a boy. What paperwork? He died 3 months ago, Palmer said. December 2022, 98 years old in Anchorage. You're the sole heir. The estate includes substantial assets, Manhattan property. I started the process 6 weeks ago. Everything is ready. I sat very still. Manhattan property. A penthouse, Landmark Tower, 52nd floor. Morris left you majority shares in Landmark Tower Corporation. The penthouse is a shareholder benefit transferable upon death. Melvin, it's worth approximately $50 million. The study went quiet. Not silent, I could hear the oak tree branches scraping the window, the air conditioner humming my own breathing. But quiet in the way a room gets when the world shifts 6 inches to the left and you're still standing in the same spot trying to understand why everything looks different. $50 million, I said. Dollars, yes. Palmer, I'm a retired engineer living on a pension. Conrad just tried to pressure me into selling this house for $400,000. How is any of this real? Morris went to Alaska in 1960 looking for gold, Palmer said. Apparently he found it. Then he invested wisely for 60 years. And he left it all to you, the grandson of his estranged brother. I've been working with the Alaska probate court since January. Everything cleared last week. The penthouse is vacant. You can move in immediately. I looked around my study. Ruth's reading chair in the corner. The bookshelf we built together in 1985. The window overlooking the oak tree that had grown from a sapling to a giant in 47 years. Immediately, I repeated. That night I made the decision. I couldn't stay in this house knowing Conrad would return. Not with threats, not with desperation, not with whatever came next. He'd seen me as an obstacle this morning. Tomorrow he'd see me as a target. I called Palmer at 11 p.m. Book me a flight to New York tomorrow. You're sure? I'm sure. I packed light. 3 suitcases. Ruth's photos our wedding day, her last birthday, the trip to Yellowstone where she'd laughed so hard she cried. Family albums. My old engineering textbooks with notes in the margins from 40 years ago. The Alaska envelope still sealed, still heavy with whatever Morris wanted to tell me from beyond the grave. I stood in the bedroom Ruth and I shared for 47 years, looking at the rectangular shadow on the wall where our wedding photo hung until I took it down 10 minutes ago and realized I wasn't abandoning our life, I was choosing to survive it. "Ruth," I said to the empty room, "if you can hear me, I'm leaving the oak tree. I'm leaving the house, but I'm not running. I'm choosing." The house made settling noises around me. The refrigerator hummed, floorboards creaked, 47 years of sounds I knew by heart. I locked the door at dawn and didn't look back. 3 days later, I stood in the Landmark Tower lobby. Glass, steel, Manhattan wealth compressed into vertical space, every surface polished to mirror shine. Palmer met me at the entrance, his gray suit as precise as his handshake. "Welcome home," he said. We rode the elevator to the 52nd floor. Gold-plated panels, soft lighting, the kind of quiet that costs money. The doors opened directly into the penthouse, not a hallway, not a landing, but straight into a space so large my brain needed 3 seconds to accept it as real. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped 2 walls. Manhattan stretched below like a living thing, afternoon sun painting the skyline in gold and shadow. Marble floors caught the light. The ceiling soared 15 feet high. I could fit my entire Florida house in the living room alone. "You've been the owner of this space for 3 weeks now," Palmer said, gesturing to the windows. "You just didn't know it. Morris's estate took time to process." I walked to the window. I looked down. 52 stories of air between me and the street. "How did he do this?" I asked. Alaska gold rush ended in 1900. Morris left in 1960. Late-stage mining operations. Then tech stocks in the 80s. Real estate in Manhattan when prices were low. He bought the original shares in this building in 1987 for $3 million. Held them for 36 years. Palmer opened his briefcase, pulled out documents. Morris was patient and very, very smart. Manhattan stretched before me like a circuit board. I'd never designed millions of lights connecting in patterns I didn't yet understand, waiting for an engineer's hand to trace the current from source to ground. "He left this to me," I said, "a man I never met. Why?" "Family," Palmer said simply. "You were the only one left." He handed me the final document, my name printed as primary shareholder, my signature line waiting. "There's one more thing," he said, reaching into his briefcase. "Morris left a personal letter, sealed. Instructions say you're to open it alone." The envelope was a thin, handwritten address, Morris's spidery script, spelling my name in ink that looked 60 years old. I waited until Palmer left, until Manhattan settled into its 10 million light hum below my 52nd floor window before I broke the seal on Morris Whitfield's letter, the man who vanished to Alaska when I was 6 years old and never came back. The envelope contained 3 items: a handwritten letter on yellowed paper, a black and white photograph, a small folded note. I picked up the photo first. 2 young men in 1950s clothing stood with arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something outside the frame. The taller one on the left I recognized from old family albums, my grandfather, maybe 23 years old, hair slicked back, suspenders over a white shirt. The other man had the same jawline, the same engineer's eyes that looked at the world like a problem waiting to be solved. Morris, 25 years old, before Alaska, before 60 years of silence. They looked like brothers who loved each other. I set the photo down carefully and unfolded the letter. Morris's handwriting was spidery but precise. Each letter formed with the care of someone who'd spent decades working alone. Dated January 2022, 1 year before he died. "Melvin, if you're reading this, I am no longer here. What I leave behind is not just money." I read the words twice, not just money. "Your grandfather and I were inseparable once. The fight that sent me to Alaska, it wasn't about gold. It was about choosing different lives. I chose solitude. He chose family. For 60 years, I watched from a distance. Your father, then you, then your son. I never reached out because I believed silence was the price of my choice. I was wrong." The letter continued for half a page, Morris's careful script explaining nothing and everything at once. He'd followed our lives through newspaper archives, through property records, through the digital breadcrumbs people leave without knowing. He knew about Ruth's death, about my aerospace work, about Conrad's business failures. "I leave you the penthouse," the letter said, "because you'll understand what to do with what comes next. Look at the pictures. Order matters. Don't ask anyone else, you will understand. Trust an engineer's mind." The letter ended there. No signature. Just those words, trust an engineer's mind. I held the photo of 2 young men who loved each other, before life pulled them to opposite ends of a continent, one building bridges in Florida, the other mining digital gold in Alaska, and felt the weight of 60 years of silence condensed into one handwritten letter. I picked up the small folded note. 12 English words were written in Morris's script, numbered 1 through 12 in the margin. Common words, simple words. Garden, mountain, whisper, element, harbor, token, bridge, canvas, silver, ancient, daughter, freedom. I stared at the list, read it forward, read it backward. The words felt random, like someone had opened a dictionary and pointed 12 times without looking. But the numbering was deliberate, precise. Each number carefully placed beside its word. My engineering training kicked in like muscle memory. This wasn't poetry. This was a key, a cipher, a pattern designed to unlock something. I flipped the photo over. More words on the back in faded pencil, barely legible. First picture 1954, last picture 2021, 67 years, 12 words between brothers. I set everything on the desk in a line. Letter, photo, note, 12 words. Order matters, I said aloud to the empty penthouse. But what do these words unlock? The penthouse hummed around me. Air conditioning, distant traffic 52 floors below, the building settling into its foundation like a living thing. I thought about Palmer's words. Morris went to Alaska looking for gold. Found it. Invested wisely. But there was something else. The neighbor in Palmer's story had mentioned Morris's computer running day and night. For decades. An old man alone in Anchorage with a computer that never stopped. This wasn't just a letter, it was instructions. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through contacts I hadn't looked at in months, stopped on a name I'd texted exactly 3 times in 4 years, Quinn Whitfield. My grandson, 19 years old, computer science major at Columbia University, Conrad and Vesper's son. The last time we'd spoken was Ruth's funeral. He'd tried to hug me. Conrad had pulled him away before his arms could reach my shoulders. Said we needed to give Grandpa space. Space that turned into 4 years of enforced silence. Why would a 98-year-old man dying alone in Anchorage spend his final months encoding a message for a great nephew he'd never met? I typed slowly. Deleted. Typed again. Quinn, it's your grandfather. I have a strange question. Do you know anything about cryptography? My thumb hovered over for 10 seconds. 20. Then I pressed it before I could talk myself out of reconnecting with the one piece of family who'd never looked at me like a bank account. The message was delivered, then read. I set the phone down, looked at Morris's 12 words again. Garden, mountain, whisper. They had to mean something. They had to unlock something. But what? Morris waited 60 years to send this message, I thought. I can wait one night for an answer. My phone lit up at 11:03 p.m. Quinn's response appeared letter by letter. Grandpa, is this really you? Yes, I know about cryptography. CS major. Remember. Why? What do you have? I picked up Morris's note, read the 12 words one more time. I looked at the photo of 2 brothers laughing in 1954 before everything broke. Something, I typed back, that your great-great-uncle Morris spent his last year designing. 12 words, numbered. He said, order matters. He said to trust an engineer's mind. Quinn, I think he left me more than just the penthouse. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Send me a photo of the words Quinn wrote, all of them in order, don't change anything. I'll call you in the morning. I photographed the note, send it, I watched it deliver. Outside my window, Manhattan glowed like a circuit board waiting to be traced from source to ground. Somewhere in this city, my grandson was looking at 12 words that might unlock whatever Morris Whitfield had really left behind. And somewhere in my chest, something I'd thought died with Ruth stirred back to life. Not hope, not quite, but possibility. The next morning, I stepped into the gold elevator at 7 a.m. to fetch the newspaper downstairs. And there she was, a woman about my age, holding a box of oil paints. Her shirt stained with cobalt blue gray hair tied hastily back, smiling at me like I was someone worth smiling at. You just moved into the penthouse, she said as the doors closed. Not a question. A statement delivered with the kind of warmth I'd forgotten existed. I'm on 48. Been wondering who'd buy that place for 6 months. What kind of coffee do you like? I stared at her. The question was so simple, so human, that my brain needed 3 seconds to process it. Black, I said. Just black coffee. No cream, no sugar, nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. She smiled wider. Good, I hate complicated coffee. I'm Hazel Archer, 65 years old, retired painter, 48th floor for 7 years. And you are? Melvin, I said. 74, retired aerospace engineer, penthouse for 6 days. Hazel Archer looked at my left hand, the wedding ring I still wore 4 years after Ruth died, and her expression softened. But she didn't ask about it, didn't offer condolences I hadn't requested, didn't treat me like a tragedy that needed managing. The 8 a.m. light on the balcony is perfect for painting, she said as the elevator slowed to her floor. And drinking black coffee if you ever want company. The doors opened. She stepped out with her paint box turned back. No pressure, just an offer. Most mornings I'm out there. You'll know where to find me. The doors closed. I continued down to the lobby, got my newspaper, and rode back up, thinking about the first person in years who'd asked me what kind of coffee I liked. Not about my health, my age, my dead wife, just coffee. The next morning at 8 a.m., I took the elevator to the 48th floor. 3 weeks passed like that. 8 a.m., coffees on Hazel's balcony, talking about art and engineering and everything except the loneliness we'd both been living with while Morris's 12 words sat on my desk, waiting for Quinn's weekend visit to unlock their meaning. Quinn arrived on a Saturday afternoon in early April with a laptop under his arm and Morris's photos still saved on his phone. He was 19 tall like his father, but with Ruth's eyes wearing a Columbia University hoodie and the kind of intense focus that reminded me of myself 40 years ago. "Show me the words again," he said, setting up at my study desk before saying hello. I handed him Morris's note, the 12 words in careful script: garden, mountain, whisper, element, harbor, token, bridge, canvas, silver, ancient, daughter, freedom. Quinn stared at the list for 10 seconds. His eyes went wide. "Grandpa, this isn't just cryptography. These 12 words, they're a BIP 39 seed phrase. Bitcoin recovery key, standard crypto protocol since 2013. "Bitcoin," I said. Morris was in Alaska. He was 90 years old when Bitcoin started. How would he even... The neighbor said his computer ran day and night, remember? Quinn pulled up a program on his laptop, fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced speed. He wasn't just in Alaska, Grandpa. He was mining digital gold. Let me input these words. I watched Quinn type each word carefully, checking the order against Morris's numbering. Garden, mountain, whisper. 12 words in sequence, each one a key to something I didn't yet understand. Photo order matches word sequence, Quinn said more to himself than to me. Entry twist recognition protocol. He designed this specifically for an engineer's mind to decode. Okay, entering seed phrase now. He hit enter. The laptop screen changed. A wallet interface loaded. Transaction history began scrolling, dates, amounts, blockchain confirmations appearing in reverse chronological order. "It's loading," Quinn whispered. "Grandpa, it's actually loading. This is a real wallet." The scrolling stopped. A number appeared at the top of the screen in bold white text against a dark background. Balance $15.3 million US. The study went completely silent. I could hear the air conditioning. Traffic 52 floors below. My own heartbeat. $15 million, Quinn said, his voice barely steady. "Grandpa Morris left you $15 million in Bitcoin." I leaned forward looking at the screen. The transaction history scrolled back years, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, further and further. Small purchases when Bitcoin was $100, $500, $1,000. Morris had been accumulating it gradually for 10 years. Morris wasn't a gold prospector who failed and died alone. He was a different kind of miner, entirely one who understood that the real gold rush of the 21st century wouldn't happen in Alaskan streams, but in blockchain ledgers accessible from a cabin computer. "He went to Alaska in 1960 looking for gold," I said quietly. "Spent 60 years there, and he found it just not the kind anyone expected." Quinn scrolled through the transactions. First purchase November 2013. Bitcoin price $97. Morris was 89 years old. Grandpa, he bought Bitcoin at 89 and held it for 10 years. I pulled out my phone, called Palmer. "Palmer, I need cryptocurrency declared to IRS immediately. Legal documented everything by the book. Morris left me a Bitcoin wallet." "A what?" "Yes, I'm serious. $15 million in Bitcoin. I need it declared today. Now, this afternoon." Palmer went quiet for 5 seconds. "I'll call my crypto compliance attorney. Don't touch anything until I call back." I hung up, looked at Quinn, looked at the screen still showing those 7 digits. Quinn closed the laptop slowly, looked at me with wide eyes. "Grandpa, the penthouse is $50 million. This Bitcoin is $15 million. With the $3 million cash inheritance Palmer mentioned," he paused, calculating, "you're worth about $68 million. I sat back in the chair Ruth used to sit in when she'd read in this room, thinking of Conrad demanding $400,000 just 1 month ago. Conrad standing in my Florida living room saying I was selfish for not selling a house to save him from bankruptcy. Conrad had no idea what I'd inherited, no idea what Morris had left behind, no idea that while he was threatening me, I was sitting on a fortune 68 times larger than the amount he'd demanded. My phone rang. "Palmer." "Melvin," he said, his voice tight. "We have a problem. Your name just appeared in Landmark Tower Corporation's public SEC quarterly filing. New majority shareholder disclosure, legally required. It went live 2 hours ago. Anyone can Google it. Anyone can find it. Palmer continued, his voice tight with controlled urgency. Your name, the shares, the value. It's all there in the SEC filing, publicly searchable. I'm sorry, Melvin. Federal securities law requires disclosure for super shareholders. There's no way around it. I sat in my study at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday in late April, watching the sun rise over Manhattan, holding the phone against my ear while my brain calculated probabilities like I'd calculated stress loads for 40 years. How long before Conrad searches my name? I asked. Days, maybe weeks. If he's desperate enough, and from what you told me about Florida, he'll Google you eventually. Melvin Whitfield Landmark Tower will bring up the filing immediately. So it's inevitable. Yes. I looked at Morris's photo on my desk. The old prospector who'd spent 60 years in Alaska waiting for the right moment to reveal his fortune. Who'd understood that timing wasn't about hiding, it was about controlling when the revelation happened. Palmer, I said slowly, if Conrad's going to find out anyway, at least now I know he's coming. That gives me control over when and how the confrontation happens instead of being ambushed unprepared. Palmer went quiet for 5 seconds. You're thinking like an engineer again. I never stopped. I sat with Palmer's warning echoing in my mind for 3 weeks, drinking morning coffee with Hazel on her balcony, watching Manhattan wake up below, knowing that somewhere in the city, Conrad was typing my name into a search engine and finding his lottery ticket to my penthouse. The elevator doors opened on a Tuesday afternoon in May. I'd just returned from coffee with Hazel, still thinking about the way she'd laughed at my story about calculating satellite trajectories. The lobby's marble floors gleamed under afternoon sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Conrad and Vesper stood 10 feet from the elevator. Conrad saw me first. His face crumpled. He fell to his knees, actually fell, both knees hitting marble hard enough that I heard the impact and burst into tears. Dad, he said, voice breaking. Dad, please, we were wrong, so wrong. Please forgive us. Vesper stood behind him, her face carefully composed in what was meant to be remorse. Her eyes were red but dry, her hands clasped in front of her like a penitent at church. I stopped walking, stood very still. Conrad slapped his own face, once, twice, hard enough to leave marks. I haven't slept since Florida, he said, crawling forward on his knees. Every night I see your face when I demanded that money, when I called you selfish, when I... His voice broke again. We found out about the penthouse, about what you inherited, and we're so ashamed, Dad. So ashamed we asked for $400,000 when you had this all along. We didn't know. We thought you were being cruel, Vesper interrupted, voice soft and wounded. We were drowning and you had this. But we understand now. You'd just inherited it. You hadn't even processed it yet, and we came at you like vultures. I looked at my son on his knees in a marble lobby, tears streaming down his face, and saw the performance for exactly what it was. The timing too perfect. The emotions too practiced. The words too carefully chosen. Conrad wasn't crying because he felt guilty. He was crying because he'd found the SEC filing and calculated his next move. We don't want your money, Vesper said, taking one step forward. We just want to make amends, to take care of you. You shouldn't be alone in this huge place. You're 74, Dad. You need family. We came to apologize, Conrad added, still on his knees, and to ask, can we stay a few days just to help? Cook clean, be family again. Please, let us prove we've changed. What kind of desperation makes a man slap himself in a marble lobby, cry on command, beg the father he abandoned 4 years ago, not for forgiveness but for access? I let silence hang for exactly 30 seconds. Long enough to seem moved, not long enough to seem suspicious. I sighed deeply. Wiped at my eyes, they were perfectly dry, but Conrad couldn't see that from floor level. I've been so alone here, I said, letting my voice tremble slightly. 52 floors. Just me and Ruth's photo. Every morning I wake up and she's not there. Every evening I sit at that big table by myself. Maybe Ruth would want family together. Conrad's face lit up, too fast, too bright. Oh, Dad, thank you, Vesper said, rushing forward. We'll take such good care of you. We can start tonight. I'll cook that pot roast you used to love. Conrad can help you organize the study. We'll... Not tonight, I interrupted, holding up one hand. I need to prepare the guest rooms. They haven't been used since I moved in. Come Friday evening, stay through the weekend. We'll figure things out as a family. Vesper's eyes flashed something cold and satisfied for half a second before her concerned mask snapped back into place. Friday, Conrad said, standing slowly, wiping tears that were already drying. Yes, that's perfect. We'll bring groceries, make it a real family weekend. He stepped forward and hugged me. I felt his arms around my shoulders and returned the embrace, thinking about the way his fingers twitched slightly against my back, already calculating, already planning what he'd search for, once he got inside. Thank you, Dad, he whispered into my ear. You won't regret this. The elevator doors closed on them. Through the gap, I saw Conrad turn to Vesper with a smile, the real smile, the one he thought I couldn't see. Vesper nodded once, sharp and decisive. I stood watching the floor numbers descend, pulled out my phone. 2 days until Friday. 48 hours to turn my penthouse into something they would never expect. I texted Quinn, "Emergency, need your help Thursday night. Bring your laptop and that equipment you mentioned. Don't tell your father." 3 dots appeared immediately. "What kind of equipment?" "The kind that records everything," I typed back. "The kind that makes sure whatever happens this weekend, there's proof." The elevator in front of me dinged empty waiting. I stepped inside and pressed 52. By Thursday midnight, 7 hidden cameras would be recording everything, and Conrad would never see them coming. Quinn arrived at 9 p.m. Thursday with a backpack that clinked with purpose, not the laptop and textbooks of a college student, but the compact surveillance equipment of someone who'd been preparing for this conversation longer than I realized. He walked straight to my study without asking directions, set the backpack on my desk, and started unpacking. 7 miniature cameras, each smaller than a deck of cards, mounting brackets, audio recording interfaces, external battery packs. "Professional-grade equipment," Quinn said, laying out each piece with practiced efficiency. 1080p video directional audio, 60-hour battery backup, encrypted cloud storage. Everything court admissible. I picked up one of the cameras. It weighed almost nothing. "You've been researching this since you texted?" "No," he paused, looking up at me. "Since before that. Since Mom started talking about helping Grandpa manage his money after you left Florida. I knew something was wrong." "How long?" 2 months, maybe 3. I researched New York surveillance law evidence admissibility chain of custody requirements. Everything we'd need if..." He stopped. "If you decided to fight back." I set the camera down carefully. "You were waiting for me to ask for help." "I was hoping you would." Quinn pulled out his laptop, opened a floor plan app. "New York law is clear. Cameras are legal in common areas where there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. Living room, study, kitchen, dining room, hallways, all fair game. Not bedrooms or bathrooms. We stay within legal bounds." I pulled out a piece of paper, sketched the penthouse layout from memory. 40 years of engineering made floor plans second nature. I marked 7 positions with X's, sightlines, coverage zones, blind spot elimination. "Here," I said, sliding the paper toward Quinn. "Living room needs 2 for full coverage. 1 in the study aimed at the desk. Kitchen camera above the refrigerator. Dining room chandelier has a smoke detector mount, that's camera 5. 2 hallway positions for movement tracking." Quinn studied my sketch, nodded slowly. "You're thinking like an engineer." I never stopped. I watched Quinn mount cameras with the same focused precision I'd once used, teaching him to build model bridges in my garage, only now my 19-year-old grandson was teaching me how to build a different kind of structure, one designed to collapse on the people walking through its doors. "Quinn," I said while he calibrated the living room camera, "I need to make a phone call. Keep working." I pulled up a contact I hadn't called in 20 years, Lieutenant Ramsey, NYPD. We'd worked together on infrastructure projects when the city upgraded its emergency response network in the early 2000s. He'd been a sergeant then. The contact still worked. "Ramsey," he answered on the second ring. "Ray, it's Melvin Whitfield, aerospace engineer, worked with you on the 2003 communication tower project." Silence for 3 seconds. "Melvin, that was 2 decades ago. What do you need?" "I need to ask something unusual. If I invite you into my home as a guest and crimes happen to occur while you're there..." "Stop." His voice shifted, became sharper. "I know where this is going. Melvin, I've been NYPD for 25 years. Elder exploitation cases are my specialty now. You invite me in, I'm a guest. What I witness as a guest is admissible. New York law is very clear on invited guest doctrine." "My son is coming Friday," I said quietly. "With his wife. They're planning something. I don't know what yet, but I know it involves my money and my capacity. I need someone who can testify to what they see." "When do you need me?" "I'll call. Maybe this weekend, maybe next week, whenever I see enough to know. I'll be ready." "Melvin," he paused, "you gather the evidence. I'll handle the legal side. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry your family put you in this position." I hung up, immediately called Palmer. "Any food or drink samples must go through NYPD lab with documented chain of custody," Palmer said before I could explain why I was calling. "I already anticipated this. Sealed evidence bags, proper labeling, direct delivery to the lab, everything by the book. I'll have bags messengered to you tomorrow morning." "You knew I'd need them. I know what desperation looks like, and I know your son is desperate." Quinn installed the final camera at 11:45, disguised as a smoke detector in the hallway near the penthouse entrance. He stood on a stepladder securing the mounting bracket when he went very still. "Grandpa," he said, not looking down, "are you absolutely sure you want to do this? That's my dad. My mom. Once these cameras are rolling, once you involve the police." His voice trailed off. I stood below the ladder, saying nothing, waiting. 40 years of aerospace engineering taught me that the strongest structures aren't the ones that resist force. They're the ones that channel force exactly where you want it to go. And this penthouse was about to become a perfect conductor. Quinn finished tightening the mount, climbed down slowly, met my eyes. "No, you're right." His jaw set hard. "Because he's my father, because he's supposed to be better than this, I can't let him do whatever he's planning to you, whatever they're planning." He pulled out his phone, opened an app. 7 camera feeds appeared on the screen crystal clear, powered them on remotely. 7 green LEDs blinked to life across the penthouse, living room, corner, study, bookshelf, kitchen, soffit, dining room, smoke detector, 3 hallway positions. Invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. "It's done," Quinn said, opening his laptop to show me the monitoring interface. 7 feeds streaming live recording to encrypted cloud storage with timestamps and location metadata. When they arrive tomorrow, everything they do, everything they say, will have it. I looked at the screens. My penthouse transformed into something between a home and a cage. Every room watched every word recorded. "There's no going back from this," I said. "I know." Quinn closed the laptop. "Grandpa, what do you think they're going to do?" "I don't know, but we'll find out together." He left at midnight. I stood in my living room looking up at the camera hidden in the corner bookshelf. A tiny lens no bigger than a pinhead watching me back. Tomorrow, Conrad and Vesper would walk through that gold elevator carrying groceries and fake smiles and whatever plan they'd spent 3 weeks designing. They'd see a lonely old man grateful for family company. They wouldn't see the cameras. They wouldn't see Quinn monitoring from Columbia. They wouldn't see the NYPD lieutenant waiting for my call. They'd see exactly what I wanted them to see, and that more than any camera was the real trap. On the 3rd day of their caregiving, Vesper brought me soup, homemade chicken broth, she said, steam rising from the white ceramic bowl she carried like an offering. Her smile so sweet it would have fooled anyone who hadn't spent the last 60 hours watching her perform concern while the cameras recorded everything. Friday evening, they'd arrived with groceries and embraces. Conrad unpacked in the guest room while Vesper explored the kitchen, cataloging my supplies with the focus of someone planning a campaign. Saturday morning, she made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh coffee, and watched me eat every bite. "You're not eating enough, Dad," she set her hand on my shoulder. "I'm making you proper meals from now on. Home cooking like Ruth used to make." Sunday, she reached for my medication bottles on the bathroom counter. "Let me organize these properly. At your age, it's easy to forget doses." I deflected. "I have a system, been managing them for 4 years. Her smile tightened. "Of course, just trying to help." Conrad spent the weekend offering to help with my banking, suggesting we review my accounts together, mentioning how complicated estate management must be. I smiled vaguely. Changed subjects, watched him search my study during the afternoon naps I pretended to take. The camera in the bookshelf caught him photographing documents, checking desk drawers, looking for the Bitcoin wallet seed phrase he had no idea I'd already moved to a bank vault. By Monday, Vesper had established complete control of my food. Every meal came from her hands, every drink poured by her. The pattern was methodical, deliberate, 3 days of building routine before the real work began. "Today I made chicken soup," she said Monday at lunch, carrying the bowl to the dining room table like a sacrament. "My grandmother's recipe. Eat it while it's hot, Dad. You'll feel so much better." She set it before me, didn't leave, pulled a chair close, sitting where she could watch my face. I picked up the spoon, lifted the bowl slightly, bringing it closer as if to appreciate the aroma. The broth smelled right chicken thyme, a faint sweetness from carrots. Exactly what it should be. But something was wrong with the color. Too clear. Real homemade broth carries a slight cloudiness from collagen and rendered fat, the residue of hours on a stovetop. This liquid was transparent, almost clinical. The kind of clear you get when you dissolve something water-soluble into already finished broth. And I thought of what Palmer had said the night before I let them move in, his voice careful and precise. "Melvin, people who do this don't use obvious poisons. They use sedatives, prescription drugs, things that cause confusion and dependency, things that taste like almost nothing but leave a faint bitterness at the back of the throat if you know what you're looking for." I knew what I was looking for. I kept my face neutral, elderly, grateful. "Smells wonderful, dear," I said. "I made extra." Vesper leaned forward. "You need to finish the whole bowl, Dad, for your strength." Ruth used to bring me soup when I was sick. Real care. The kind that comes from 50 years of marriage and actually wanting the person to heal, and watching Vesper perform this grotesque imitation while cameras recorded her slow-motion murder attempt was like watching someone desecrate a grave. I lifted the spoon to my lips, tilted it, sipped air, let my throat move as if swallowing, set the spoon down, repeated the motion. "I'll wait here while you eat," Vesper said. "Can't let you waste food." "Conrad," she called suddenly, head turning toward the hallway. "Come here a moment." He appeared in the doorway. "What? Did you move my phone? I can't find it." "Kitchen counter. Where you left it." Vesper stood, walked toward the kitchen. "I'm sure I had it in." The moment her back turned, I moved, grabbed the bowl, poured it into the large ceramic flower pot on the windowsill, the one holding the oak seedling Ruth had planted 3 months before the cancer took her. The soil absorbed the liquid instantly. I pulled the Ziploc bag from my jacket pocket, transferred a small amount of soup into it, sealed it, slipped it back into my jacket. Vesper's footsteps returned. I set the empty bowl down, wiped my mouth with a napkin, let my eyes go slightly unfocused. "Dad, you drank it all." Vesper's face lit up with something that might have been joy if you didn't know what the happiness meant. "I'm so proud of you. Now rest. You'll feel much better very soon, I promise." "Already feeling?" I let my words slur slightly. "Relaxed?" "That's good. That's very good." She patted my hand. "Come on, let's get you to your chair. You should lie down." What kind of calculation happens in a human brain that decides the appropriate solution to debt is spooning poison into soup while smiling at the man you're about to drug into incapacity? I let her help me to the living room, sank into my reading chair with theatrical slowness, closed my eyes, breathed deeply and evenly like someone sliding into unexpected sleep. Through half-closed lids, I watched Vesper stand over me for 30 seconds. She pulled out her phone, texted someone, smiled. Then she walked to the kitchen. I heard cabinet doors opening. The refrigerator, she was already planning tomorrow's meal. That night, after Conrad and Vesper retired to the guest room at 10 p.m., Quinn arrived through the service entrance at 11. He carried an NYPD evidence bag Palmer had messengered that morning, sealed, labeled with chain of custody forms attached. "Lab analysis takes 60 hours, Quinn whispered, photographing the soup sample from every angle before sealing it in the evidence bag. He filled out the forms with careful precision: date, time, collector name, substance, description, collection location. Photographed each page. 3 more days of them living here thinking it worked. I looked at my grandson preparing evidence that would send his father to prison. His hands didn't shake. His jaw stayed set. "You okay?" I asked. "No." He sealed the bag, labeled it evidence item number 3. "But I'm sure." "What's items 1 and 2? "Coffee grounds from Saturday morning," she added something to those too, "and the medication bottle she tried to reorganize fingerprints. Palmer's handling the lab submission tomorrow morning. Everything documented, everything chain of custody clean." He stood, evidence bag in hand. "In the morning you have to pretend it worked." "I know." "Act confused, forgetful, vulnerable. She's going to dose you again and again until she thinks you're incapacitated enough to sign whatever documents they've prepared." "How long until Lieutenant Ramsey can act?" "Palmer says we need at least 5 documented incidents. 5 doses, 5 samples, 5 recordings of her administering them. That's the threshold for premeditated elder exploitation versus single incident. 5 doses, 5 performances, 5 days of letting Vesper think she was slowly erasing my mind." Quinn left through the service entrance at midnight. I stood in my living room looking at the flower pot on the windowsill. The oak seedling Ruth's last planting, the one she'd started from an acorn she found on our 40th anniversary trip, sat in soil now poisoned with whatever Vesper had put in that soup. The plant would die. That was certain. Chemical contamination in soil took months to remediate. But Ruth would understand. She'd always understood when I had to sacrifice something small to build something that lasted. 5 documented incidents. The number sat in my mind like a countdown timer while I performed confusion for 2 more days. Tuesday's breakfast soup poured into the dying oak seedling. Wednesday's lunch casserole transferred to sealed bags while Vesper answered phone calls. Each performance brought me closer to the threshold Lieutenant Ramsey needed. Wednesday afternoon. Hazel knocked on my penthouse door with an expression I'd never seen on her face in our month of morning coffees, not the warm artist's curiosity or the easy companionship, but something careful, protective, almost angry. "I need to show you something," she said before I could invite her in. "Can we talk somewhere your daughter-in-law won't overhear?" I glanced toward the guest room where Vesper was supposedly napping. Led Hazel to my study, closed the door. "Tuesday morning," Hazel said, her voice tight. "I was painting in the 48th floor hallway, working on a building perspective piece. Your daughter-in-law approached me." Vesper. She was all smiles, so friendly. Introduced herself as the caring daughter-in-law who'd come to look after you, asked how I knew you, how often we talked, whether I'd noticed anything concerning about your behavior lately. Hazel's hands were shaking slightly. I'd never seen her hands shake. It felt like an interrogation disguised as neighborly conversation, she continued. She kept mentioning your age, your cognitive decline, your vulnerability, like she was testing whether I'd believe it. And did you— No. Hazel's voice hardened. You're sharper than most people half your age. Every conversation we've had about art, about engineering, about the way light changes Manhattan's geometry at different times of day, you're completely present, completely clear. So when she suggested I might be taking advantage of an elderly man, I knew she was lying. The question was why. I sat down slowly in my desk chair. What else did she say? That you needed family care now, that outside friendships might confuse you, that I should respect your family's privacy during this difficult transition. Then she smiled and left. I stood in that hallway for 10 minutes trying to understand what I'd just witnessed. Ruth used to tell me I was too trusting, that I saw the best in people when I should see the truth. But Hazel saw the truth in one conversation with Vesper, recognized predation disguised as care, offered protection without being asked, which is what real friendship looks like when you've forgotten. Last night, Hazel pulled out her phone. I received this. She handed it to me. A text message from an unknown number, timestamp 11:47 p.m. Ms. Archer, I'm willing to compensate you $50,000 for respecting family privacy during this difficult time. My father-in-law is experiencing cognitive decline and is vulnerable to outside influence. Please keep your distance for his protection. Transfer details to follow. I read it twice. My hands stayed steady despite the fury building in my chest. $50,000, Hazel said, to stay away from you because you're cognitively declining and I'm outside influence. You refused. I blocked the number immediately. Then I realized people don't offer $50,000 to isolate someone unless they're planning something that requires isolation. She looked at me directly. What are they doing to you? I met her eyes. Can I photograph this text? It's evidence. Evidence I need. Hazel handed me her phone without hesitation. I pulled out my own phone, photographed the screen from multiple angles, the message, the timestamp, the unknown number that I knew would trace back to Vesper's burner phone. Added context notes, date, received circumstances, witness account. Evidence for what? Hazel asked quietly. An exploitation attempt, I said. That's all I can say right now. But if I ask you to be a witness if this goes to court, it won't be pleasant. My son, my daughter-in-law, legal proceedings, cross-examination. Are you prepared for that? Hazel studied me for a long moment, artist's eyes seeing composition pattern the shape of things. Are they trying to hurt you? She asked. Yes. Isolate you. Yes. Take something from you. Everything. What level of desperation drives someone to spend $50,000 money they claimed not to have just to isolate their victim from the one person who might notice what's happening? Then I'm not being dragged into this, Hazel said firmly. I'm walking in deliberately, with open eyes. Tell me what you need. Right now, just this text, your willingness to testify about Vesper's hallway conversation and the bribery attempt, nothing more. There's more, Hazel said. She pulled a small notebook from her bag, the kind artists use for quick sketches and observations. I keep notes, visual details, behavioral patterns. It's habit from 50 years of painting. When your son and daughter-in-law arrived, I noticed things. The way she hovers during meals, the way he searches rooms when he thinks nobody's watching, the way neither of them looks at you like you're a person, more like you're an obstacle. She flipped through pages. Notes dated, timed, sketched. Vesper bringing covered dishes. Conrad photographing documents. Behavioral observations written in an artist's precise hand. I didn't know why I was documenting it, Hazel said. Now I do. I looked at the notebook. Another form of evidence. Another witness with clear eyes. Hazel, I can't tell you how much. Don't. She closed the notebook. I'm not doing this for gratitude. I'm doing it because somebody has to. Because I drank coffee with you every morning for a month and you never once treated me like a lonely old woman who needed managing. You treated me like a person. That's rare. Worth defending. She stood. When you need me to testify, call. Until then, I'll document what I see. From a distance, Vesper thinks is safe. After Hazel left, I added the bribery text photos to the encrypted folder Quinn maintained evidence file growing by the day. Photographed the notebook pages Hazel had let me copy. Filed everything with timestamps and context notes. Then Vesper knocked. Entered without waiting for response. Carried another bowl of soup. Dad, you forgot your afternoon nutrition? She said, smile bright and toxic. Let me help you. You need to keep your strength up. I looked at the soup. 60 hours until the lab results came back on Monday's sample. 60 hours of drinking soup I'd never swallow, playing confused while cameras recorded every calculated gesture, every fake concern, every dose of whatever she was using to erase my mind. Thank you, dear, I said, voice deliberately weak. You're so good to me. Her smile widened. And somewhere in this penthouse, Conrad was searching for something specific. The cameras would show me exactly what. Monday evening, day 8. I sat in my bedroom with Quinn's laptop showing 7 camera feeds and watched my son break into my safe at 2:47 p.m. that afternoon while I'd pretended to nap his hands moving through 40 years of private documents, like a burglar who'd forgotten he once called this home. Quinn sat beside me, headphones splitting audio between us, his face lit by the screen glow. "Study camera angle 2, he said. "Timestamp shows this was 3 hours ago." The footage was crystal clear. Conrad entered the study, checked the hallway twice, left then right, confirming I was still in the bedroom. Approached the wall safe behind Ruth's landscape painting, lifted the painting carefully, set it against the desk. He knew the combination. Of course he knew it. His birth year. The code I'd used since he was 6 years old, the security blanket number he'd memorized, doing homework at this desk. The safe opened. Conrad removed documents one by one. Property deeds, Morris's inheritance papers, Bitcoin wallet notes, the copies I deliberately left visible knowing someone would search. His hands moved methodically, checking each page, setting aside anything financial. Vesper entered at 2:51 p.m., pulled out her phone. "The Bitcoin papers," she said on camera, voice clear as if she were standing beside me now. "Photograph everything. Account numbers, seed phrase copies, anything with numbers." "This feels wrong," Conrad said, his voice barely audible. "He's my father. These are his private—" "Your father has $68 million and you have $300,000 in debt." Vesper's voice cut through his hesitation like a scalpel. "Keep photographing." I watched my 35-year-old son rifle through documents I'd kept in that safe since before he was born. Birth certificates, Ruth's death certificate, marriage license, 40 years of engineering achievements, and he looked at each paper like it was worthless unless it had a $sign and account number. 15 minutes of methodical theft, all recorded in 1080p. "They know about the Bitcoin," Quinn whispered. "They know the exact total, 68 million. They've calculated everything." "Not everything," I said. "They don't know we're watching." Quinn fast-forwarded to Wednesday night. Day 10, 11:03 p.m. timestamp. I had stepped onto the balcony for air, standing in the shadow of the doorframe, believing them absorbed in conversation. They hadn't seen me. Balcony camera night vision engaged and my own phone set to voice memo in my shirt pocket, running the entire time. New York law was clear. One party in a conversation could record it. I was that party. Conrad and Vesper stood at the railing, 52 floors above Manhattan, believing I was too sedated to move. The city hummed below traffic sirens, the constant white noise of 8 million lives. Every word came through clearly. "The doctor comes Friday," Vesper said, her back to the camera, arms crossed against the night air. 2 more days of soup, he'll be confused enough for the examination." "What if he's not—" Conrad's voice carried anxiety I recognized from his childhood, the tone he used when he knew he was doing something wrong. "What if he's just pretending to be affected? Dad's smarter than we're giving him credit for." "Conrad." Vesper turned to face him, her expression invisible, but her body language sharp, aggressive. "We're too deep now. The doctor will certify incompetence. You'll get emergency power of attorney. By Monday morning, we control the penthouse, the Bitcoin, everything. No court challenges, no lawyers. Done. And if Dad fights it, he's 74 years old, diagnosed mentally incompetent by a licensed physician with documented cognitive decline. Who's going to believe him over medical testimony?" Silence on the recording. Wind caught the microphone, created brief static, then cleared. "The old man is almost ready," Vesper said finally. "He forgot his own phone number yesterday. Couldn't remember what year it was. The soup is working. Friday morning, 10 a.m., the doctor examines him. By 10:30, we have the certification. By noon, you file for emergency guardianship. Everything legal, everything documented. 40 years designing satellite infrastructure taught me that every system has a tolerance threshold, the exact point where stress exceeds design and catastrophic failure occurs, and Vesper had just confirmed they'd exceeded theirs by exactly 2 days. Quinn stopped the playback. The bedroom went dark except for the laptop's residual glow. 1 a.m. Wednesday night, bleeding into Thursday morning. 7 pieces, Quinn said, opening the encrypted folder. Camera installations with timestamps. Soup samples. NYPD lab is processing those now. Hazel's bribery text with Vesper's number. This safe theft footage. Asset document photographs. And this. He highlighted the balcony audio file. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Spoken aloud. Crystal clear. Friday morning, I said. When that fake doctor arrives and they think I'm drugged into incompetence, that's when Ray walks in. Grandpa. Quinn turned to look at me in the darkness. Once this happens, once you call the police while they're here, there's no going back. You understand that they'll be arrested, charged. You'll testify against your own son. I understand. Do you really? His voice cracked slightly. That's my dad, your son, and we're about to... He broke into my safe and photographed everything I own, I said quietly. His wife has been poisoning my food for 8 days. They hired a fake doctor to declare me mentally incompetent so they can steal $68 million. Quinn, that's not my son anymore. That's a criminal who happens to share my DNA. Silence stretched between us. 36 hours, Quinn whispered finally. I pulled out my phone, texted Lieutenant Ramsey at 1:30 a.m. Friday, 10 a.m. Fake doctor being brought to my penthouse to fraudulently certify me incompetent. I'm inviting you and your team as guests. Arrest warrants ready. The response came in 30 seconds. Warrants signed. Elder exploitation conspiracy to commit fraud, criminal endangerment. We'll be there at 10 o'clock, not 10:01. Be ready. Melvin, you did the right thing calling me. I set the phone down, looked at Quinn across the laptop glow. Friday morning, I said. I wake up, drink Vesper's soup, act confused when the doctor arrives. You're monitoring from your dorm. Ray and his team arrive at exactly 10 a.m. Invited guests, perfectly legal. The doctor examines me. Conrad pulls out the power of attorney papers, and then Ray announces they're all under arrest. And Mom and Dad discover the difference between a confused old man and an aerospace engineer who spent 2 weeks building a perfect trap, Quinn finished. I closed the laptop. The bedroom went completely dark. 36 hours until the penthouse became a courtroom. 36 hours until my son learned that the father he'd tried to erase had been watching every move, recording every word, building a case that would send him to prison. I thought about Ruth, what she'd say about this, whether she'd approve or call me heartless. But Ruth wasn't here, and the cameras didn't lie. Friday morning, 10 a.m., not a second later. I was ready. The email arrived at 2:47 p.m. Thursday afternoon, bright Manhattan sunlight flooding my penthouse study 18 hours before the fake doctor's scheduled arrival, and the subject line read simply, NYPD Forensic Laboratory Analysis Complete. I opened it. Palmer's message was brief. Melvin, the lab results are definitive. Lorazepam at 4 times therapeutic dose. This isn't sedation, this is incapacitation. Criminal intent is clear. Full report attached. Call me. I downloaded the PDF. 8 pages. Official NYPD Forensic Laboratory letterhead. Case number. Chain of custody documentation showing Quinn's delivery of 3 sealed soup samples on 3 separate dates. Signatures from receiving technician, analyzing chemist, supervising director. Page 4 contained the findings. Sample analysis. All 3 samples positive for lorazepam benzodiazepine sedative. Concentration 8.0 milligrams per serving. Standard therapeutic dose for anxiety treatment 2.0 milligrams. Subject samples contain 4 times therapeutic concentration. Page 5 detailed the effects. Expected physiological response in elderly patient age 70 plus. Severe disorientation within 30 to 45 minutes of ingestion. Cognitive impairment including short-term memory loss, confusion, difficulty with sequential tasks, motor control deterioration, speech slurring, symptoms consistent with dementia or acute cognitive decline. Duration 6 to 8 hours per dose. I read it twice. The technical language was precise clinical damning. Vesper hadn't been trying to make me sleepy or forgetful. She'd been systematically rendering me unable to think, speak, or defend myself. Exactly the symptoms she'd been describing to justify calling a doctor to certify my incompetence. The report's final paragraph. Conclusion. Concentration and administration pattern indicate intentional dosing with sedative medication, not consistent with accidental contamination or self-administration error. Sufficient evidence for criminal charges, reckless endangerment, elder abuse, attempted fraud via incapacitation. I held the lab report, 8 pages of technical analysis, chain of custody documentation, toxicology findings, and realized this was the moment everything became irreversible. The point where my son stopped being a struggling father who made mistakes and became a criminal who drugged his elderly father with intent to incapacitate. My phone rang. Palmer. You read it, he said. 4 times the therapeutic dose. Enough to make you unable to protest signed documents or understand what was happening. Melvin, with this evidence, we can file charges immediately. Arrest warrant can be executed today, this afternoon. You don't have to spend another night with them in your home. I forwarded the report to Lieutenant Ramsey, typed 6th piece of evidence, Ray, lorazepam at 4 times dose, warrant ready. His response came in 90 seconds. Warrant signed this morning. Judge reviewed everything. Cameras, lab results, bribery, text balcony recording, safe breach. We can arrest now or wait for tomorrow's fraud attempt. Your house, your call. But Melvin, they've already poisoned you 3 times. The risk is real. Palmer was still on the phone. What are you thinking? Ray says we can go now or wait for the fake doctor tomorrow. What's your legal opinion? Tomorrow adds conspiracy to commit fraud via false medical certification, Palmer said carefully. That's an additional felony. Stronger case. But you already have enough to convict on elder abuse and reckless endangerment. Melvin, I vote we go now. End this. You've been sleeping down the hall from people who are drugging your food. Why wait? Ray, I put the phone on speaker. I'm here, Ramsey said. Palmer's right. We have 6 documented pieces of evidence. Cameras, lab confirmation of poisoning, recorded conspiracy. That's prosecutable right now. Tomorrow just adds another charge, attempted fraud, but increases your risk. One more breakfast with them. One more soup bowl. What if they escalate? I stood up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan stretched below afternoon sun, turning glass towers into gold. I could end this today. Call Ramsey. Arrest happens in an hour. Conrad and Vesper in custody by dinner. Sleep tonight knowing they're gone. Or wait 18 hours. Let them bring the fake doctor tomorrow. Catch them in the act of fraud. Prove the complete conspiracy. Maximum charges. No legal wiggle room for expensive lawyers to exploit. Risk one more night of them in my home, one more breakfast pretending, one more performance. Certainty. They'd walk into a trap they built themselves, recorded from every angle with a fake doctor as final proof of intent. Engineering teaches you that every structure has a point of no return, the stress load where damage becomes permanent, where reversal is impossible, where you either complete the collapse or accept catastrophic failure. And I'd just chosen to let this structure fall completely. Tomorrow, I said. 10 a.m. Let them bring the doctor. Silence on both phones. Melvin, Palmer started. Are you sure? I want every charge that can stick. I want the fake doctor on camera. I want them caught in the act of bringing fraudulent medical certification to my home. I want maximum penalties with zero ambiguity. Understood, Ramsey said. My team will be positioned at 9:45. The doctor won't make it past your lobby without us knowing. When he arrives at your door, we'll be 60 seconds behind him. The moment he begins the examination, we enter as your invited guests. Melvin, Palmer said quietly. This means one more night, one more breakfast. Can you handle that? I looked at the lab report still on my screen. 4 times the therapeutic dose, administered deliberately, 3 times, to her own father-in-law. I've handled 12 days, I said. I can handle 18 more hours. After the calls ended, I stood at the window watching evening light change the city's color. Somewhere down there, people were finishing work, heading home, making dinner plans, living normal lives. And 52 floors above them, I was choosing to spend one more night with my son and his wife, knowing they'd poisoned me 3 times, knowing they planned to bring a fake doctor tomorrow to certify me incompetent, knowing I had the power to end it right now. But tomorrow they'd wake thinking they'd won. They'd eat breakfast in my penthouse. They'd bring their doctor at 10 a.m. They'd watch me pretend confusion one final time. What they didn't know, Lieutenant Ramsey and 3 officers would arrive at 10 o'clock with signed arrest warrants, invited guests with cameras rolling, and every soup bowl, every lie, every whispered conversation would become evidence they'd built themselves. Tonight I would sleep in my bedroom for the last time with criminals down the hall. Tomorrow, I would watch my son discover what happens when you mistake an engineer's patience for weakness. 18 hours. I set my phone alarm for 6:30 a.m. My phone buzzed at 4:17 p.m. Thursday, 9 hours after I'd decided to wait 15 hours before the trap would spring, and Quinn's text made my hands shake. White lab coat, 40s, asking front desk for Vesper Whitfield. I'm recording. I stood at my bedroom window 52 floors above the lobby. Quinn was watching, holding my phone like it might explode. The fake doctor, already here. Quinn had positioned himself in the lobby an hour ago, laptop open at a table near the visitor's desk, pretending to study while monitoring the elevator banks. We'd planned this after reviewing the balcony footage. Vesper's words about the doctor comes Friday meant she had to meet him beforehand, coordinate the story, probably pay him. Probably. Now certainly. Another text. He's younger than I expected, maybe 45. Clean white lab coat, stethoscope around neck, medical bag. Looks legit from distance. Front desk just called Vesper's room. I walked to my bedroom door, listened, heard Vesper's voice in the guest room muffled, then her door opening, her footsteps toward the elevator. She's coming down, I texted Quinn. Get everything. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then, already recording, video and audio, phone hidden behind laptop screen. How do you sit still when your daughter-in-law is 50 floors below, buying false testimony that will declare you mentally incompetent? How do you breathe normally, knowing a stranger in a white coat is about to accept cash to sign documents that could steal everything you've built? You don't. You stand at your window watching Manhattan's afternoon traffic, holding a phone that's receiving real-time updates of your own destruction. Another text. Elevator opened. She's walking toward him. Big smile, extending hand for handshake. I imagined it. Vesper in her carefully chosen outfit, professional but warm, the concerned daughter-in-law. The fake doctor with his prop stethoscope and medical bag. 2 actors meeting to rehearse fraud. "They're talking," Quinn texted. "Can't hear yet, moving closer, pretending to get coffee." 30 seconds of silence, my heart counted each one. Then, got it. She just handed him a thick envelope, brown manila. He didn't even check inside, put it straight in medical bag. My aerospace engineering degree, 30 years calculating trajectories for satellites, 40 years of professional precision. And it all meant nothing against a paid signature from a man in a white coat willing to certify lies. Before I tell you what Quinn captured next, are you still with me? Comment whether you think waiting for tomorrow is justice or cruelty, and tell me why in 1 sentence, because this next moment confirms the conspiracy beyond doubt. Please note what follows contains recreated details for narrative purposes, but the lesson is what matters. "Audio is crystal clear," Quinn texted. "Lobby acoustics are perfect, getting every word." Another text, this one with partial quotes. "Vesper, father's condition has deteriorated significantly. Examination tomorrow at 10 a.m. You'll find severe cognitive impairment. Fake doctor, standard geriatric assessment, memory tests, orientation questions, motor skills evaluation." Vesper, already know what diagnosis will be. Discuss this with your colleague. Paperwork ready for signature. I read the fragments 3 times. Already know what diagnosis will be, not "I'm concerned about what you'll find," or "please assess him honestly." She'd told him the conclusion before the examination. Premeditated fraud, conspiracy, on camera, on audio, with a cash payment as evidence. "Taking photos now," Quinn texted. Multiple angles, time-stamped, they're still talking. My phone buzzed continuously as images arrived. Vesper and the fake doctor standing in the marble lobby, the envelope visible in his hand before it disappeared into the medical bag, their faces clear and identifiable. The visitor's desk in background with timestamp visible on the security monitor. More audio, Quinn sent. "Fake doctor, tomorrow at 10 I arrive, conduct 30-minute examination, complete the certification forms, standard medical opinion stating patient lacks capacity for financial decisions." Vesper. "My husband will have power of attorney. Paperwork ready. Once you sign the competency evaluation, we file immediately. Everything legal, everything proper." Legal. Proper. Words they kept using while buying false medical testimony in a lobby full of witnesses they didn't realize were documenting everything. I set my phone down, stared at the images Quinn had sent. Vesper handing cash to a stranger who would examine me tomorrow and lie about my cognitive state, who would sign documents declaring me unable to manage my own affairs, who would provide the legal foundation for Conrad to seize control of everything. For $68 million, you can hire a man willing to wear a white coat and destroy someone's legal autonomy. For $10,000, that's what I guessed was in that envelope based on going rates for fraudulent medical certification, you can buy a signature that erases 40 years of professional achievement. "They're separating," Quinn texted. "He's leaving through front entrance. She's heading back to elevator. Do you want me to follow him? Get car plates." "No," I typed back. "You've done enough. Send everything to Ramsey. Encrypted. Now." "Already sent. Photos, audio files, timestamps. He has it all." "Then come up. Through service entrance, not the main elevator." 5 minutes later, Quinn knocked softly on my bedroom door, slipped inside. His face was flushed hands, shaking slightly from adrenaline. "I got everything, Grandpa. Every word, every photo." Lieutenant Ramsey texted back. He says, "This is evidence piece 8. Bribery, conspiracy, fraud. Combined with everything else, it's ironclad." "Tomorrow morning," I said quietly. 10 a.m., that fake doctor arrives. Ramsey arrives 60 seconds later, and they discover they've been recorded for 12 days. Quinn looked at his phone. 15 hours, that's all that's left. One more night's sleep in my bedroom with criminals down the hall. One more breakfast performance. One more bowl of soup I wouldn't drink. Then the gold elevator doors would open at 10 a.m., and my son would learn what happens when you build a trap so perfect that every wire, every sensor, every triggering mechanism has been documented by the prey you thought was too old and confused to fight back. "Get some rest," I told Quinn. "Tomorrow's going to be a very long day." After he left, I stood at my window watching the sun set over Manhattan. Somewhere down there, the fake doctor was counting $15,000. Somewhere in the guest room, Vesper was rehearsing tomorrow's performance. And up here, 52 floors above them all, an aerospace engineer who'd spent 2 weeks building a perfect trap was setting his alarm for 6:30 a.m. The final performance began at breakfast. I told Ruth everything that night like I always did. 11 p.m. The penthouse quiet except for Manhattan's distant hum. I sat in the bedroom darkness, her photograph on the nightstand, and spoke to the woman who'd been gone 4 years but still listened better than anyone living. "Tomorrow morning," I told her. "The fake doctor comes at 10. Lieutenant Ramsey's team is already positioned, every camera recording, every piece of evidence documented." Ruth smiled back from 2019 wearing the blue sweater I'd bought her for our 45th anniversary. She'd always said I calculated things too carefully. "Tomorrow every variable is accounted for," I said quietly. I pulled out Morris's Alaska photos, black and white images from the 1960s. Morris beside a cabin, mountains behind him. Morris alone in the wilderness, choosing solitude over family. "Morris taught me Bitcoin patience," I said. "His uncle taught him Alaska patience. Tomorrow I show Conrad and Vesper what 74 years of patience looks like." The clock read 11:47 p.m. 13 hours until the doorbell rang. But I felt no fear, no rage, just the calm that comes when you've checked every calculation, twice verified, every structure confirmed, every trajectory. An engineer's calm. Tomorrow wasn't about revenge, it was about physics, actions and consequences. I turned off the lamp at midnight, slept 6 hours without dreams. The alarm rang at 6:30 a.m. I showered, dressed, made my way to the dining room at 8, exactly moving slightly slower than necessary, letting my hand shake, reaching for the coffee pot. Vesper was already there, setting out breakfast with unusual cheer. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, everything normal, everything poisonous with false care. "Good morning, Dad, I have wonderful news." "Morning, dear." I let my voice waver. "What news?" "I've arranged for a private physician to examine you today at 10 o'clock. You've been so forgetful lately, we want to make sure you're okay." I sat down carefully. "A doctor that's very thoughtful." "We care about you, Dad." She poured my coffee. Conrad entered, checked his phone, immediately looked at Vesper with a glance I'd learned to read confirmation coordination countdown. "The paperwork is ready," he asked her. "Everything we discussed." Vesper nodded. "Everything. How do you eat breakfast with people who've poisoned your food for 2 weeks, knowing in 90 minutes they'll be in handcuffs? You perform. You're an actor who's had 2 weeks of rehearsal. You let your hand shake reaching for toast. You ask what day it is. You agree pleasantly to everything." "This coffee tastes different," I said. "Good. Different." "I bought a new blend," Vesper lied. The coffee tasted normal because it was normal. No chemical smell. No sedative. They wanted me clear-headed enough to be examined, confused enough to fail cognitive tests. Breakfast lasted 30 minutes. I performed confusion perfectly, lost my train of thought, twice forgot Conrad's daughter's name, asked if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Vesper's satisfaction was visible. By 9:30, we'd moved to the living room. I sat in my reading chair. Vesper tidied throw pillows that didn't need tidying. Conrad checked his phone every 90 seconds. I sipped cold coffee, slowly watching the wall clock tick. 9:35 a.m., 25 minutes. 9:42 a.m., 18 minutes. 9:50 a.m., 10 minutes. I thought of Ruth. 32 years of marriage, she'd watched me calculate orbital mechanics at the dinner table, work through satellite trajectory problems on napkins, turn every decision into an equation. Tonight, I'd tell her photo the math worked. 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes. Vesper straightened her blazer, fixed her hair in a picture frame's reflection, preparing to greet the doctor she'd paid to certify me incompetent. Conrad stood, sat down, stood again, the anxiety of waiting for a crime to complete. 9:58 a.m., the clock ticked audibly, each second distinct. "Dad, the doctor should be here any moment," Vesper said. "Why don't you sit comfortably?" "I'm fine right here, dear." I smiled vaguely, just finishing my coffee. 9:59 a.m. I set my coffee cup on the saucer. The porcelain touched without sound. My hands steady, my heart rate normal. An engineer waiting for a system to execute exactly as designed. 30 years. Calculating satellite trajectories taught me one truth. Once you've plotted the orbit, verified the mathematics, confirmed every variable, you simply wait for physics to do what physics does. No force of will changes gravity. You calculate correctly or you don't. And if you do, the satellite reaches its destination at exactly the predicted second. Through the window, 52 floors down, I couldn't see Lieutenant Ramsey's unmarked cars. But I knew they were there. Positioned at 9:45 a.m., 3 officers, signed arrest warrants, waiting for a man in a white coat to enter so they could follow him up. Vesper straightened a throw pillow for the 3rd time. Conrad checked his watch. 9:59:30. Somewhere in the elevator shaft, gears turned. Cables moved. A man in a white coat ascended toward the 52nd floor carrying a medical bag with $15,000 in blank certification forms. 9:59:45. 15 seconds. I would have to answer the door. Greet him. Shake his hand. Perform confusion one final time while NYPD officers stood in the hallway behind him. 10 seconds. Vesper smoothed her blazer again. 5 seconds. Conrad stood up, ready to welcome their accomplice. 3 seconds. I prepared my confused elderly face, the one I'd practiced in mirrors, the one that had fooled them for 2 weeks. 2 seconds. 1. The doorbell rang. The elevator chime rang a single perfect note, and gold doors began to open. I stood 10 feet from the entrance, hands loose at my sides, breathing steady. Vesper hovered near the foyer, smoothing her dress. Conrad paced by the windows, checking his Rolex every 30 seconds. The doors slid apart. Not one man in a white coat. 5 people, Quinn in jeans and a Columbia hoodie. Palmer Delaney, my attorney, 62, silver-haired and sharp-eyed in his navy suit. A tall black man in an NYPD lieutenant's uniform badge gleaming. Behind them, 2 uniformed officers' hands resting on their belts. Vesper's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Conrad stopped mid-step. What? NYPD. The lieutenant stepped forward, credentials in one hand. Lieutenant Darren Ramsey, 19th Precinct. We're here on invitation from Mr. Melvin Whitfield, lawful resident and owner of this property. Palmer moved into the living room, briefcase in hand, eyes scanning Conrad and Vesper like a surgeon reviewing x-rays. Under New York law, an invited guest provides legal entry. Mr. Whitfield contacted Lieutenant Ramsey 14 days ago. Vesper turned toward me. Her face, beautiful, always so beautiful, collapsed into something I'd never seen before. Not anger. Recognition. She knew. The elevator doors opened, and my daughter-in-law's face told me she knew. Dad, Conrad's voice cracked. What is this? You asked them here. I didn't answer. Not yet. Lieutenant Ramsey pulled a folded document from his jacket. Conrad Whitfield, Vesper Whitfield. I have a warrant for your arrest issued by the New York County Criminal Court. He opened it, began reading. Charges include attempted grand larceny in the first-degree, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse in the first-degree, assault in the second degree through administration of controlled substances, and criminal solicitation. Vesper stepped back. This is insane. Melvin's confused. He doesn't know what he's saying. Mr. Whitfield has been perfectly lucid for 14 days. Palmer opened his briefcase, pulled out a manila folder. He's documented every interaction. He contacted me March 20th, retained my services, and coordinated with NYPD to build a case. A case? Conrad's face went white. Dad can barely remember his own name. Lieutenant Ramsey held up a hand. We have lab results from the New York State Police Forensic Laboratory. Samples of food prepared by Ms. Vesper Whitfield tested positive for lorazepam, 8 milligrams per serving, 4 times the standard therapeutic dose. He nodded to one of the officers who stepped forward with an evidence bag containing a small plastic container. Recovered from your bedroom nightstand yesterday morning. I watched Vesper's knees buckle slightly. We have video footage, Palmer continued, pulling out a tablet, from 4 cameras installed throughout this apartment. Living room, kitchen, hallway, entryway. 14 days of recording showing Ms. Whitfield administering medication without Mr. Whitfield's knowledge or consent. He turned the tablet toward Conrad. On screen, Vesper at the kitchen counter Wednesday morning, crushing pills, stirring them into oatmeal. Conrad stared. No, that's... We also have this. Quinn stepped forward. My grandson, 19 years old, wearing the same calm expression he wore debugging code. He held his phone up. On the screen, a photograph of Vesper in the lobby yesterday handing a cash envelope to a man in a white doctor's coat. Taken Thursday afternoon. Audio recording captured Ms. Whitfield saying, tomorrow at 10, the diagnosis we discussed, 3,000 now 7 when you sign. How do you measure betrayal? In milligrams of poison, in forged signatures. In the moment your son realizes the trap has already closed. Vesper's hands shook. Conrad the First. You hired someone. Conrad's voice went hollow. You actually hired a fake doctor. We needed the conservatorship. You drugged my father. Lieutenant Ramsey nodded to the 2 officers. Conrad Whitfield, Vesper Whitfield, you're both under arrest. He began reciting Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The officers moved forward, pulling handcuffs from their belts. Conrad turned toward me. Dad, please, I didn't know about the drugs. I swear I thought... You thought I was losing my mind, I said. My voice came out clear, every word sharp, perfectly enunciated, no tremor, no confusion. Conrad froze. You thought I'd forgotten Ruth's name. You thought I couldn't remember what year it was, what city I lived in, whether I'd eaten breakfast. I stepped closer. I'm 74 years old. I calculated satellite trajectories for 30 years at Northrop Grumman. I knew exactly what you were doing. The room went silent. No shuffling, no breathing, just my words hanging in the air like equations on a chalkboard. You wanted my estate. My chest felt tight, but my voice stayed steady. $68 million. You were willing to have me declared incompetent, locked away somewhere forgotten. Your mother died 3 years ago, and you couldn't wait 3 more for me to follow her. Vesper's face twisted. You set us up. I collected evidence. I looked at Conrad, my son, my only child, the boy I taught to ride a bike in Riverside Park. You had 2 weeks to stop. Every morning you watched her drug my food. You never said a word. The officer clicked handcuffs around Conrad's wrists. His shoulders sagged. You have the right to an attorney, Lieutenant Ramsey continued. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Palmer touched my elbow gently. Melvin, you should sit down. I'm fine. But I wasn't. My hands were shaking now, not from lorazepam, from adrenaline from watching my son in handcuffs. The officers escorted Conrad and Vesper toward the elevator. Conrad didn't look back. Vesper did one last glance, her mascara starting to run. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. The doors closed. Gone. I stood in my living room, finally still, finally done performing. Quinn moved beside me, his hand on my shoulder. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan stretched 50 floors below, indifferent and vast. I'd won. I had my home back, my freedom, my name. But winning felt like standing in an empty room where your family used to be. Watching your children realize you have proof of everything they did is a specific kind of pain. The elevator doors had just closed, but Lieutenant Ramsey held up one hand. Before we transport them to the station, Mr. Whitfield requested we review the evidence here, so they understand exactly what we have. Palmer moved to the dining table, opened his briefcase with a lawyer's precision, and began laying out folders. Conrad and Vesper stood in handcuffs by the windows, 2 officers flanking them. Camera 1, Palmer said, sliding a photograph across the polished mahogany. March 15th, 2:47 p.m., your son entering the bedroom safe while you were sedated. The image showed Conrad crouched by my safe fingers on the dial. Camera 2, same day, 3:12 p.m., searching desk drawers. Another photo, Conrad rifling through my desk. Conrad's face went gray. Palmer continued, methodical as a surgeon. March 18th, March 22nd, April 3rd. Every time Ms. Whitfield drugged your coffee, Mr. Conrad searched another part of this apartment. He spread 12 photographs in a neat grid, timestamps in yellow at the bottom of each frame. Lieutenant Ramsey stepped forward, holding a folder with the NYPD seal. Lab results from the New York State Police Forensic Laboratory. Analyzed 5 food and beverage samples between April 28th and May 10th, soup, oatmeal, and coffee submitted across multiple dates. He opened the report. NYPD Lab confirmed lorazepam in every coffee sample Mr. Whitfield submitted, 4 times the standard dose, consistent concentration across all specimens. I stood near the fireplace, hands in my pockets, watching, saying nothing. Vesper's jaw tightened. This proves nothing. Old people forget to take medication. Maybe he was confused about... Camera 3, Palmer interrupted, sliding another photo forward. Kitchen, April 30th, 9:47 a.m. Ms. Vesper Whitfield crushing 2 pills with the back of a spoon, stirring the powder into a coffee mug. The photo showed Vesper at the counter, spoon in hand, white powder visible on granite. She went silent. Palmer pulled out a tablet. We also have video. 14 days of footage. I can play any day you'd like. That won't be necessary, Lieutenant Ramsey said quietly. The room smelled like coffee. Still, Quinn had made a pot this morning before everything. Now the scent felt wrong. Palmer picked up another folder. May 12th, Thursday afternoon, lobby security camera. He slid a printed photograph across the table. Vesper in the lobby handing a cash envelope to a man in a white coat. Timestamp 3:14 p.m. Ms. Whitfield met with Mr. Gregory Foster, a former physician's assistant whose PA license was revoked in 2019 for falsifying patient records. Palmer's voice never wavered. Audio recording from Mr. Quinn Whitfield's surveillance captured Ms. Whitfield saying, he pressed play on a small digital recorder. Vesper's voice crisp and clear. Tomorrow at 10. The diagnosis we discussed, 3,000, now 7,000 when you sign the certification. Conrad turned toward Vesper, mouth open. Palmer stopped the recording. We have Mr. Foster in custody. He's cooperating fully. Evidence is gravity. You can deny it, argue with it, rage against it. But it pulls you down the same. There's more, Palmer said. He looked toward Quinn's bedroom door. Ms. Archer, would you come out, please? The door opened. Hazel Archer stepped into the living room. 65 years old, gray hair tied back, wearing her usual navy cardigan over paint-stained jeans, the woman I'd met in a gold elevator 7 weeks ago when she'd asked me what kind of coffee I liked. My neighbor on 48. The first person in 4 years who'd treated me like a person worth knowing. Vesper had tried to buy her. Vesper's face was drained of color. Hazel looked at Vesper, then at me. Her voice came out steady. Ms. Whitfield offered me $50,000 to sign a statement saying Mr. Melvin was confused and delusional. She said it would help him get the care he needed, that as his neighbor and daily companion, my testimony about his behavior would carry weight. She seemed to believe that anyone who spent time with him regularly could be bought. Hazel's hands clasped together. I refused. I told Quinn instead. Vesper's mask slipped just for a second. Hazel, you said you understood. You said you needed the money. I said I'd think about it. Hazel's voice hardened. I thought about it for 6 hours. Then I called Quinn and told him everything. Quinn stood near the hallway, arms crossed, face unreadable. Palmer pulled out one more item, a small digital recorder. May 11th, Wednesday evening. Conversation between Mr. Conrad Whitfield and Miss Vesper Whitfield on the penthouse balcony, captured on Mr. Melvin Whitfield's personal device while he was present, recorded under New York's one-party consent law. He pressed play. Conrad's voice tinny through the speaker. Vesper, we're too deep now. If he wakes up before Friday, we're finished. Vesper's recorded reply. He won't. I doubled the dose this morning. He'll be barely functional until Saturday. Conrad's voice again. And if the doctor doesn't show, he'll show. $10,000 is $10,000. Palmer stopped the recording. Silence. Conrad's knees buckled. One of the officers caught his elbow, but Conrad sank down anyway, handcuffs clinking. He fell to his knees on the Persian rug Ruth and I bought in 1985. Dad? His voice cracked. Dad, please, I'm sorry. I didn't... Vesper said you wouldn't remember, said you were getting worse anyway. Please, Dad. When your son kneels before you in handcuffs, begging forgiveness for trying to steal your life, what equation solves that? I looked down at him. My son. The boy I taught to throw a baseball in Central Park. The teenager who cried when Ruth died. Please, Conrad whispered. Vesper stood straight, spine-rigid, mask rebuilt. You don't understand. That money was supposed to be ours. You and Mom, you hoarded it, lived like you didn't have millions. Your mother would have forgiven you, I said. My voice came out quiet, tired. I calculated trajectories for satellites. I can't calculate this. Vesper's face, cold defiant, cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. For 1 second, I didn't see the woman who drugged my coffee. I saw the young woman I'd welcomed as a daughter, caught and frightened, terrified I'd stop loving her. Then the second passed. Lieutenant Ramsey nodded to the officers. Time to go. They lifted Conrad from the floor. Vesper stood straight, mask rebuilt, but her eyes found mine for 1 second, and I saw my daughter at 8 years old caught stealing cookies, terrified I'd stop loving her. Then the officers turned them toward the elevator, and the moment was gone. The elevator doors opened. Conrad stumbled inside, shoulders shaking. Vesper walked in with her head high. The doors closed. The legal machinery had them now. This happened before the evidence review, before Palmer laid out the photographs, before the balcony recording played. Conrad and Vesper were still uncuffed, still standing in my living room. I crossed the living room. My legs felt steady. My hands didn't shake. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the property transfer documents Palmer had prepared weeks ago, the ones Conrad thought I'd sign, the ones that would make him co-owner of this penthouse. I held them up. Conrad's eyes locked on them. Then I tore them in half. The ripping sound echoed in the silent room. I tore them again, and again. White paper fragments drifted to the Persian rug like confetti at a funeral. Conrad's face went white. 4 years ago you stopped visiting, I said. My voice came out calm, engineering calm, the voice I used presenting trajectory calculations to NASA review boards. 3 years ago your mother died and you came to the funeral but left the next morning. A month ago you forced me to sell Ruth's house in Florida, the house where we spent 30 winters together. I let the torn pieces fall from my hands. This week you put lorazepam in my coffee, your own father's coffee. You searched my safe while I was sedated. You hired a fake doctor to certify me incompetent. Vesper opened her mouth. I held up one hand. I pretended to accept your repentance, I said. I wanted to see how despicable you could become. Today you gave me the answer. I turned toward Lieutenant Ramsey, turned my back on Conrad. Take them away. I don't have a son and daughter-in-law like this. Silence. Then footsteps, officers moving forward. No, Conrad's voice cracked. No, Dad, please. The first handcuff clicked onto Vesper's wrist, metal against bone. She jerked back, but the officer held firm. Second click, both wrists secured. This is your fault, Conrad. Vesper's voice went shrill, desperate. You said he'd never know. You said it was safe. You said... Vesper, shut up. You promised me. You said your father was losing his mind, that we could... The officer moved to Conrad. First cuff clicked. Conrad's knees buckled. He sagged against the officer who held him upright. Second cuff closed. Quinn. Conrad's voice broke into sobs. Quinn, please. Tell your grandfather, tell him we love him. Tell him we're sorry, tell him... Quinn stood near the hallway, arms crossed. 19 years old. My grandson. The only one who chose me. He stepped forward. I never thought you could do this to Grandpa, Quinn said. His voice stayed level, but I heard the tremor underneath. I never thought my own parents could be this cruel. Conrad's face crumpled. Quinn, we're your parents. You drugged him. Quinn's hands clenched into fists. You tried to steal his home. You were going to lock him away somewhere and forget him. We weren't. I recorded everything. I gave it all to Lieutenant Ramsey. I chose. The words hung in the air like smoke. Is it justice if it tastes like grief? Is it victory if the prize is silence? Vesper screamed, wordless, furious. She lunged toward Quinn, but the handcuffs jerked her back. The officer caught her shoulder. You betrayed your own parents. You betrayed your father-in-law, Quinn shot back. You drugged him. You... Ms. Whitfield, enough. Lieutenant Ramsey's voice cut through the room. Officers, escort them out. 2 officers moved forward, one on each side of Conrad and Vesper. Conrad couldn't walk. His legs wouldn't hold him. The officer half-carried him toward the elevator. Vesper walked with her spine straight head high, but mascara streaked her cheeks. The elevator doors slid open, gold gleaming, reflecting morning light from the floor-to-ceiling windows. Conrad turned back one last time. Dad, please, I'm your son. The officer guided him into the elevator. Vesper stepped in beside him, silent, now staring straight ahead. Lieutenant Ramsey followed, Palmer, the other officers. Quinn and I stood in the living room, Hazel near the kitchen archway. The elevator chime echoed once, then nothing. Manhattan stretched beyond the windows, 8 million people, and I'd just exiled my son from my life. The doors closed. Gone. The penthouse went silent. No voices, no footsteps, just the faint hum of the HVAC system and the sound of breathing. Hazel crossed the room quietly. She placed one hand on my shoulder, light careful. You did the right thing, Mr. Whitfield, she said softly. The only thing. I didn't answer, couldn't. Quinn stood frozen near the hallway, staring at the closed elevator doors. His face so young, too young for this, looked hollow. Grandpa, he whispered. I opened my arms. Quinn crossed the room in 3 steps and collapsed into my chest. His shoulders shook. I wrapped my arms around him, my grandson, my ally, the boy who chose me when his parents chose greed. I'm here, Quinn said against my shoulder. I'm staying. His weight against me felt real. Solid. The first genuine family embrace since Ruth died 3 years ago. One at the cost of sending my son to prison. Victory tastes like ashes when you've burned your family to claim it. Hazel moved to the kitchen. I heard water running, the quiet clink of teacups. Quinn's head rested on my shoulder. His breathing slowed, steadied. Through the window, 50 floors down, I watched the NYPD cruiser pull into traffic, white and blue lights off, moving north toward the precinct station, carrying my son and daughter-in-law to jail. I'd won. The penthouse was mine. The estate was secure, and I'd destroyed my son to do it. I'd protected $68 million. I'd lost my family. The morning sun slanted through the windows, warm on my face. The torn property transfer papers lay scattered on the Persian rug. Quinn's arms tightened around me. The penthouse was silent except for 2 people breathing. But the story wasn't over. The trial still waited. When Lieutenant Ramsey asked if I needed a doctor, I told him the truth. I never drank the soup. The penthouse was still silent. Quinn beside me, Hazel making tea in the kitchen, the NYPD cruiser disappearing into Manhattan traffic 50 floors below. Lieutenant Ramsey turned from the window. Mr. Whitfield, we need to talk about your health. 4 times therapeutic dose daily for weeks. His face showed genuine concern. We need to get you examined, liver kidney function neurological assessment. I never drank it. He stopped mid-sentence. I'm sorry. The soup, the coffee. I straightened my shoulders. Every night, bedroom flower pot. Check if you want that oak seedling is probably dead. The room went silent. Even Hazel stopped moving. Palmer crossed the room in 3 steps. You knew from the first day you pretended to be drugged while completely lucid. First bowl. I moved to the dining table, pulled out a chair, sat down. Palmer warned me the night before they moved in. Told me exactly what to look for, prescription sedatives dissolved in liquid, nearly tasteless, but for a faint bitterness at the back of the throat. The soup color was wrong, too clear. No cloudiness from real cooking. I sipped once, recognized the slight looseness in my thinking 20 minutes later, and that was enough. Every dose after that went into the flower pot or down the bathroom sink. I collected samples instead. You poured it into a plant? Lieutenant Ramsey's voice went flat. For 2 weeks. 14 days. The soup went into the oak seedling about 8 ounces nightly. The coffee I dumped in the bathroom sink when Vesper wasn't watching, refilled the mug with tap water. I looked at my hands, steady, no tremor. I pretended to drink, pretended to forget, pretended to shuffle and slur. Quinn stared at me. Grandpa, the whole confused act. Performance, calculated. Ruth did community theater for 20 years. She taught me blocking timing, how to make an audience believe. Palmer sank into a chair across from me. His lawyer's composure cracked slightly. This means you were never impaired. Every slurred word, every forgotten name. Deliberate. I met his eyes. I needed proof, not just of drugging, but of intent. If I'd confronted them immediately, they'd deny everything. So I performed confusion, collected evidence, and let them think they were winning. How long can you perform confusion? Drink your coffee while your children watch pour drugged soup into a plant and smile like you don't know. Lieutenant Ramsey pulled out his phone-typed notes. This changes the prosecution narrative. You orchestrated the entire trap while fully functional. Yes. That's cold, Mr. Whitfield. That's engineering. Variables, constants, predicted outcomes. I folded my hands on the table. They tried to steal my life. I documented it. Palmer's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned. We have another problem. Conrad and Vesper will lawyer up within hours. Their attorney will argue you're mentally unstable, paranoid, delusional. They might request emergency asset freeze pending psychiatric evaluation. Quinn moved beside my chair. Can they do that? Judge might grant temporary freeze if they argue flight risk or dissipation of assets. Palmer's eyes met mine. We have maybe 48 hours before court hearing. After that, your accounts could be locked. The Bitcoin, I said quietly. Exactly. Palmer leaned forward. It's your asset. You have legal right to manage it. But once a freeze order hits, then we move it now. I stood. Quinn office. We need the computer. Quinn followed me down the hallway. Palmer behind us. Lieutenant Ramsey stayed in the living room with Hazel. My office floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, mahogany desk, triple monitors I'd set up when Morris first explained cryptocurrency. Quinn pulled out the desk chair. I sat down. I woke the computer. Entered password, opened the wallet application Morris had recommended. Grandpa, we need to move the Bitcoin now. New wallet, new seed phrase. Leave the old one empty. I know. My fingers moved across the keyboard. Morris left me instructions. 30 years of patience, now we move in 4 minutes. Palmer stood behind us watching the screen. Walk me through this. Current wallet holds Bitcoin worth approximately $15 million, I said. We create new wallet with new seed phrase, 24 random words generated by software. Transfer entire balance. Old wallet becomes empty. And if they freeze the old wallet address, they freeze nothing. An empty vault. I navigated to create new wallet. Bitcoin isn't frozen by court order, it's math. Private key controls the funds. New key, new control. Perfectly legal. Quinn pulled up a notepad. I'll record the new seed phrase. You need to memorize it and destroy the written copy. The software generated 24 words. English words randomly selected: elephant whisper, mountain bronze. I wrote them down by hand on paper. Quinn typed them into encrypted notes. I double-checked spelling. Ready. Quinn's hand hovered over the mouse. Transfer. 40 minutes. That's how long it took, initiating the transaction, broadcasting it to the network. Then watching the block confirmations tick upward one by one. Bitcoin doesn't process faster because the sum is larger or the urgency is real. The network runs on its own clock, roughly 10 minutes per block, 6 confirmations for a transfer this size to be considered final. Quinn watched the screen. I watched the door. The cold wallet felt lighter than a phone. Morris's legacy, $15 million in electrons secured by mathematics, Ruth would never have understood but trusted because Morris calculated it. The screen refreshed. Old wallet 0.00000000 BTC. New wallet showing full balance. Transfer complete, Quinn said quietly. Old wallet shows 0. New wallet secure with new 24-word phrase. Palmer exhaled slowly. Even if they freeze the old wallet address, it's empty. This is perfectly legal, your assets, your right to manage them. I held the cold wallet in my palm. Smaller than my thumb. Weighed maybe 80 grams. Morris had spent 30 years in Alaska searching for gold, freezing nights, back-breaking work relationships destroyed, chasing yellow metal. He found something better. Digital gold that fits in your palm. Morris, I whispered. You spent 30 years calculating. You found what the Alaska prospectors never could: digital gold that fits in your palm. Quinn saved the encrypted seed phrase to 3 locations. I folded the paper with the handwritten words, put it in my wallet. We walked back to the living room. Palmer closed his briefcase. Lieutenant Ramsey shook his head, half admiring, half disturbed. Quinn looked at me like he'd just met his grandfather for the first time. I'd protected everything. I'd deceived everyone, even the people trying to save me. But the legal battle was just beginning. My face was on the morning news, and I'd never felt more invisible. The arrest had happened on a Friday. By Saturday morning, press vans lined the street below my building. White trucks with satellite dishes. Cameramen smoking on the sidewalk. Reporters doing stand-ups with Landmark Tower's gleaming facade behind them. Manhattan's most shocking elder abuse case, the Chiron read. a 74-year-old aerospace engineer, a 52-floor trap, 2 arrests. My phone rang incessantly. I left it on the dining table muted, watching the screen light up every 30 seconds. Instead, I sat on the 48th floor balcony with Hazel, coffee in my hands, real coffee, no drugs bitter in the right way, and watched Manhattan move through early June sunshine. "The news trucks are still down there," Hazel said quietly. She sat in the chair Ruth used to occupy Sunday Times crossword puzzle open on her lap. "Are you all right, Mr. Whitfield?" I sipped coffee. The air smelled like summer-hot concrete, distant exhaust, someone's air conditioner blowing jasmine-scented air freshener. "This is the first morning in 4 years I've been truly all right," I said. "That's strange, isn't it?" Hazel's pencil paused mid-word. She looked at me, really looked the way Ruth used to when she knew I needed to talk but wouldn't start. 4 years since Conrad stopped visiting. 4 years since I stopped feeling safe in my own home. I set the coffee down. He came back a month ago. I thought briefly maybe he'd changed. Then I tasted the coffee and knew. Hazel's pencil scratched paper again. 7-letter word for freedom. Starts with R. I thought about it. Below us, Manhattan stretched in all directions. 8 million people going to work, buying coffee, arguing with cab drivers, living lives that had nothing to do with fathers and sons and betrayal. "Release," I said. She wrote it in. Fit perfectly. The first genuine peace I'd felt in years didn't come from victory or wealth secured. It came from sitting on a balcony with Hazel doing a crossword puzzle, something utterly ordinary that Conrad and Vesper had stolen without even realizing it. The phone inside kept lighting up. I ignored it. Hazel's pencil scratched paper. Seagulls crossed between buildings. Below Manhattan moved forward 8 million lives that didn't stop because mine had imploded. A week later, the phone rang with an unknown number. Caller ID showed Rikers Island Correctional Facility. I stared at it. Quinn was at Columbia taking summer classes. Hazel had gone home for the day. I was alone in the penthouse 50 floors above Manhattan holding a phone that connected to a jail cell holding my son. I almost didn't answer. Then I pressed the green button. Automated voice, female, emotionless. "You have a collect call from an inmate at Rikers Island Correctional Facility. Press 1 to accept charges. Press 2 to decline." I pressed 1. Silence. Then clicks electronic routing, the hollow echo of institutional phone systems. "Dad." Conrad's voice. Distant. Hollow. Background noise, metal doors, clanging men shouting in Spanish, the endless drone of a detention facility. "It's me. I have 5 minutes." I stood at the window looking down at the city. Somewhere out there, north and east across the river, Conrad stood in an orange jumpsuit, holding a phone receiver scarred with graffiti. "I'm listening," I said. Silence. Not dead air breathing. Conrad collecting himself. "I don't know why I called," he said finally. "Palmer says I shouldn't contact you. My lawyer says it's stupid, but I needed..." His voice cracked. "I needed to hear your voice." I didn't speak. "Vesper came up with the plan," Conrad said. The words tumbled out fast, desperate. "She showed me articles about conservatorships, elder care facilities, how families handle dementia. I didn't, at first I said no. But she kept saying you'd forget us anyway, that dementia patients don't know their own children, that we were just protecting what was supposed to be ours eventually." Cars honked 50 floors below. The sun slanted through the window, warm on my face. "I only agreed because I was terrified of being broke at 47, Conrad continued. "I'm a hedge fund analyst who hasn't had a winning quarter in 3 years. Our apartment costs $8,000 a month. Quinn's tuition is $70,000 a year, and you're sitting on..." He stopped. "I know that's not an excuse, Dad. I know. Is forgiveness necessary between father and son when trust is gone? Or is honest distance better than false reconciliation?" "I heard you," I said quietly. "I don't know if forgiveness is necessary between us now. But I want you to know I don't hate you. I just can't trust you anymore." The line went silent. I could hear him breathing shallow, uneven. "I understand," Conrad whispered. Click. The call ended. Silence. I set the phone down, and for the first time since Conrad's voice came through that receiver, I didn't feel empty. Not forgiven, not reconciled, just clear. I walked to the dining table where Ruth's photo stood in its silver frame, the one from our 40th anniversary, her smile bright and real and frozen at 62. I set the phone on Ruth's photo frame. Her smile frozen at 62 seemed sadder now. She would have wanted me to forgive. But Ruth never calculated trajectories. She never had to plot her children's destruction to survive them. The trial date arrived 3 weeks later. The judge's gavel fell, and my son became inmate number 847392. 9 months had passed since Conrad's phone call from Rikers. 9 months of depositions, plea negotiations, psychiatric evaluations. The trial date had finally arrived. Manhattan Criminal Courthouse Courtroom. Number 14, March 2024. I sat in the front row with Quinn beside me, Palmer at the prosecutor's table, Conrad and Vesper at the defense table in their pressed suits, last civilian clothes they'd wear for years. Judge Margaret Holbrook, 58 years old, had presided over elder abuse cases for 12 years. Her face showed no sympathy. "Mrs. Vesper Whitfield," she said, voice echoing through the courtroom. "The evidence shows you conceived, planned, and executed systematic drugging and exploitation of your father-in-law. You are sentenced to 6 years in state prison for elder abuse in the first-degree criminal fraud and reckless endangerment." Vesper's spine went rigid. 6 years. "Mr. Conrad Whitfield," Judge Holbrook continued, "your cooperation with prosecutors and testimony against your wife has been noted. However, you participated willingly in drugging your father and attempting to steal his estate. 2 years incarceration plus 3 years supervised probation." Conrad's shoulders sagged. Vesper turned toward Conrad, whispered something harsh I couldn't hear, but Quinn sitting beside me caught it. She said, "This is your fault. You should have kept him confused longer," Quinn whispered. Even at sentencing, Vesper calculated. The gavel fell. My son walked toward prison guards. I didn't feel victory. I felt done. Conrad turned once before the guards escorted him through the side door. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I held his gaze. Didn't look away, didn't nod, didn't forgive. Just looked. Then he was gone. 3 months later, June 2024. I stood in a 20th floor office in Landmark Tower, 30 floors below my penthouse, overlooking the same Manhattan skyline from a different angle. Palmer had begun the nonprofit paperwork the week after the arrest, filing articles of incorporation with New York State while the trial was still pending, anticipating this moment. The sign on the door read Silas Foundation Legal Aid for Seniors. Morris's middle name, Ruth's father's name, the name I'd given the foundation that would turn Bitcoin into protection for people who needed it. Hazel had designed the logo simple, professional, a shield with an olive branch. Quinn built the website and managed social media. Palmer signed on as chief legal counsel pro bono for the first year. Hazel hung the Silas Foundation sign. Quinn tested the website on his laptop. Palmer arranged legal files in the conference room, and I stood in the middle of a 20th floor office wondering if Morris knew his Bitcoin would fund this. The foundation opened on a Tuesday. I'd prepared an opening statement, written it longhand, revised it 17 times, practiced it in front of Ruth's photo until the words felt true. Quinn recorded it for the website. I stood in front of the window Manhattan behind me and spoke directly to the camera. "I built this foundation because I know what it feels like when no one calls, not because they're angry, but because no one needs to hear from you." My voice stayed steady. "I know what it's like when your own children see you as an obstacle to inheritance, rather than a person who raised them. No senior should face exploitation alone. That's why we're here." Quinn posted the video at 9 a.m. By 11 a.m. we had 7 consultation requests. By 3 p.m. Eleanor Finch walked through our door. 71 years old, former librarian, gray hair pulled into a bun that reminded me of Hazel. She carried a purse that looked older than Quinn and wore a cardigan with frayed cuffs. She had the same haunted look I'd worn 9 months earlier. "Mrs. Finch," Palmer said gently, guiding her to the conference room. "Please have a seat. This is Melvin Whitfield, Foundation Director." Eleanor sat across from me. Her hands shook slightly. "How do you transform family destruction into purpose? How does victim become advocate?" "My son is doing the same thing yours did," Eleanor said quietly. "I saw your video. The drugging, the fake confusion, the searching." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was going crazy. He kept saying I forgot things, but I didn't. I never forgot." My chest tightened. "Mrs. Finch, that's exactly the reason I'm here." I leaned forward, pulled out a legal pad, picked up a pen. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. When did you first notice?" Eleanor took a shaky breath. 3 months ago. Coffee started tasting wrong." "The same pattern, the exact same pattern." "You're not crazy," I said. My voice came out firm, certain. "You're being targeted, and we're going to document everything just like I did." Palmer pulled out intake forms. Quinn opened his laptop to begin case notes. Hazel brought tea chamomile, the kind that calms without sedating. Eleanor talked for 47 minutes. Told me about her son Marcus, unemployed, gambling debts, pressure from his wife. About coffee that tasted bitter. About stumbling in the hallway when she'd never stumbled before. About the lawyer's letter suggesting conservatorship for her own good. I listened, took notes, asked questions. An engineer would ask timeline, dosage patterns, financial access points, witness availability. When she finished, I looked at her across the conference table. "Ruth Morris, I understand now," I thought. "This is why I had to survive. Not for revenge, for her, for the next one, for all of them." "Mrs. Finch," I said aloud, "we're going to help you. Palmer will coordinate with NYPD. Quinn will set up cameras if you approve. I'll teach you exactly what I did, how to pretend, how to collect evidence, how to build a case so strong they can't escape." Her eyes filled with tears. "You really think I can do this?" "I know you can, because I did, and you're stronger than you think." Eleanor left with Palmer an hour later, evidence documentation plan in hand. Quinn scheduled 3 more consultations for next week. Hazel made tea in the small kitchen we'd set up in the back office. I looked at Ruth's photo on my new desk, the same silver frame from the penthouse, her smile frozen at 62. She was smiling. She would have loved this office. 1 year later, the foundation had helped 97 seniors, and I had finally found something I'd lost 4 years ago. I was 75 years old when I finally visited the place my brother chose over family. 1 year had passed since Eleanor Finch walked into the Silas Foundation. 97 seniors helped. 97 families facing the same exploitation Conrad and Vesper had tried. The foundation ran itself. Now Palmer handled legal, Quinn managed operations. Hazel coordinated intake. Which meant for the first time in 18 months, I could leave Manhattan. June 2024. Summer in Alaska meant 20-hour days, endless light mountains sharp against pale blue sky. We boarded the flight to Anchorage, Quinn, Hazel, and I, carrying Morris's Bitcoin instructions that included his final address, 1247 Spruce Lane. The place my brother lived for 60 years, the place he never left to meet Ruth, to attend my wedding, to see Conrad born. The rental car smelled like pine air freshener and old coffee. Quinn drove through Anchorage suburbs, modest houses, pickup trucks and driveways, mountains visible between roof lines. Nothing like Manhattan's vertical steel. "Grandpa, this is it," Quinn said, pulling to the curb. 1247 Spruce Lane, Uncle Morris's address from the Bitcoin instructions. I stepped out of the car. The house was small. 1-story ranch white siding, gone gray-green shutters faded by 60 Alaskan winters. The porch sagged slightly. The yard needed mowing. But behind it, mountains, snow-capped peaks stretching across the horizon like vertebrae of the earth itself. I stood on the cracked sidewalk staring. "He lived here 60 years, I said quietly. "Never came back. I thought he abandoned us, but maybe he found something we didn't understand." Hazel stepped beside me. "It's beautiful, quiet, like he wanted to disappear into the landscape." Quinn walked up the driveway. "The current owner gave us permission to look around. Said Morris sold it to them in 2020, moved to assisted living for his last 2 years." We approached the front door. I touched the porch railing, rough wood splinters waiting. Morris's hands had touched this railing thousands of times. A voice called from next door. "Can I help you?" An old woman stood in the adjacent yard, pruning shears and hand vegetable garden behind her. Helen Garrett, 82 years old, had lived next door to Morris for 40 years and still tended her garden daily. Gray hair under a sun hat, wearing gardening gloves and a flannel shirt despite summer warmth. "We're looking for information about Morris Whitfield," I said. "He lived here until 2020. Her face softened. "Morris? Yes. Are you family?" "His brother, from Florida." "Melvin," she smiled. "He talked about you often. Very proud of your aerospace work. Showed me articles, sometimes satellite launches, engineering awards." My throat tightened. "Morris, we called him by his full name here, lived alone but wasn't lonely," Helen continued. "Grew vegetables. Had an old dog named Cypher who died in 2015. Had that computer running day and night in the back room. Talked about his brother often. Very proud." Quinn walked around the side of the house toward the shed. "Is the shed still there?" I asked. "Yes. Locked, but the current owner said I could give you the key if you came." Helen reached into her pocket, pulled out a small brass key. "Morris left something for you. Asked me to keep the key until someone named Melvin showed up." I took the key. It felt warm from her pocket. The shed sat behind the house, weathered wood, single window door secured with a padlock. I fit the key in the lock. Click. The door swung open. Inside, garden tools, old lawnmower, cardboard boxes labeled in Morris's engineer's handwriting, and on a workbench a leather-bound diary. Quinn picked it up carefully. "Grandpa, look at the last entry." I opened to the final page. Date November 2022, 1 year before Morris died. Quinn read aloud, "I hope Melvin receives what I sent, not money, but a chance to choose again." Morris had lived in this house for 60 years, watching those mountains every morning. He'd calculated Bitcoin mining before most people knew computers existed. And he'd thought about me as brother in Florida the entire time. "He knew," I whispered. 60 years ago, he knew I'd need an escape route someday. Hazel touched my shoulder gently. "He gave you freedom when you needed it most." We flew back to Manhattan 2 days later. The gold elevator opened on the 52nd floor. I stepped into the penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan stretching in all directions, the apartment Conrad and Vesper tried to steal. But it felt different now. I walked to the study, opened the box I'd carried from Alaska. Inside Morris's diary, a photograph of him standing before those mountains, gray-haired and calm. I hung it on the wall. Ruth's photo on the left, her smile at our 40th anniversary. Morris's photo on the right, brother I never met, but who saved me anyway. Ruth on the left, Morris on the right, I said aloud. 32 years with one. Never met the other. Both gave me everything. Hazel stood in the doorway holding a wrapped canvas. I finished the painting, from Alaska. She unwrapped it. Oil on canvas. 2 figures before Alaskan mountains. One tall engineer, one artist with kind eyes standing close enough that shoulders touched. He looks so much like you, Hazel said softly. Same eyes, same engineer's face. I looked at the painting, then at Morris's photo, then at Ruth's smile. We never met, I said. But I think Morris understood me better than people who saw me every day. That's what family means sometimes, understanding across distance. When does a place become home? When you own it, when you fight for it, or when you finally hang photos of the people who matter on the walls. I hung Hazel's painting between Ruth and Morris. 3 images on the study wall, 2 people gone, 1 present. All 3 brought me here. The penthouse finally felt like home. The penthouse had 3 bedrooms. Quinn used one for foundation work. The 3rd bedroom sat empty, door open, afternoon light streaming in. Over 15 months of morning coffees through the arrest, the trial, the foundation's first clients, the Alaska trip, Hazel Archer had become the steadiest presence in my life. Not a romance in any dramatic sense. Something quieter and more durable. A person who chose to show up every single day without being asked, who documented Vesper's behavior in a notebook before she knew why, who refused $50,000 because she believed I was worth defending. 3 weeks ago, over black coffee on her balcony, she'd said simply, I spend more time on 52 than 48 anyway. The 3rd room is just sitting there. I hadn't argued. I understood what that empty room meant. I put pen to paper at midnight, and for the first time in 15 months, I wrote to my son. The empty 3rd bedroom stayed empty. Afternoon light still streamed through the open door. But I understood what it meant now, not absence, but possibility. Space for whatever came next. Tonight, late August, the air conditioning hummed against Manhattan heat. My desk lamp cast yellow light across blank paper. Ruth's photo watched from the wall. Morris's photo beside her. Hazel's painting between them. What do you write to the son who tried to drug you? Dear Conrad feels wrong. Dear inmate number 847392 feels cruel. So I just wrote Conrad. Then I stopped. Stared at his name in my handwriting, same letters I'd written on birthday cards, graduation announcements, wedding invitations. 15 months since the arrest. For the first time, the blank page didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a conversation I could finally have. I wrote, I went to Alaska in June, found Morris's house, small ranch mountains behind it. He left a diary. Last entry said he gave me a chance to choose again. I finally understand what he meant. My hand moved steadily across the page. Engineering precision, each word measured truthful, free of performance. The Bitcoin wasn't just money. It was freedom. When you and Vesper drugged my coffee, when you searched my safe, when you hired that fake doctor, I had an escape route you didn't know existed. Morris gave me that 60 years ago without knowing I'd need it. Not forgiveness, not condemnation, just the truth. Quinn works at the foundation now, manages operations. Hazel designed our logo. She's the neighbor Vesper tried to bribe into silence. Palmer handles legal cases. We've helped 97 seniors facing what you tried to do to me. The ink flowed. Manhattan hummed 52 floors below. Somewhere north and east across the river, Conrad would read this in a cell in 3 days. I don't know what things will be like when you get out. I don't know if we'll speak, if we'll rebuild something, if you'll even want to see me. But I want you to know I'm still alive, still healthy, and for the first time in years, I'm truly happy. I paused, 1 sentence left. Not because you were arrested, but because I finally chose myself. The ink dried on paper. Conrad would receive this in 3 days, read it in a cell. Maybe he'd understand, maybe not. But I'd finally said what mattered. I chose myself. I signed it, your father. Sealed the envelope, addressed it to Otisville Correctional Facility, set it on the desk for tomorrow's mail. 75 years old. For the first time in so long, I didn't feel like I was running out of time. I felt like I was just beginning. 3 days later, late summer afternoon, I stood on the penthouse terrace. Manhattan stretched below rivers on both sides. Bridges connecting boroughs, 8 million lives moving through concrete and steel. The sky burned orange-yellow sun dropping toward New Jersey skyline. Hazel sat in the corner chair, sketchpad, open pencil, moving across paper, drawing the skyline, drawing the light. She'd moved into the 3rd bedroom 2 weeks ago, not because I asked, but because she chose. The room that had sat empty since Conrad's arrest finally had a purpose. Quinn stood by the railing with his phone filming a promotional video for the foundation. 19 years old computer science major grandson who chose me when his parents chose greed. The terrace smelled like summer hot metal railing distant street food. Hazel's jasmine tea cooling on the side table. At what age do you finally learn to live for yourself, 75? Or is it not about age at all? Just the moment you stop performing for people who see you as a bank account. Grandpa, Quinn said, turning the camera toward me, say something for the foundation video. Tell people why you started this. I looked at the camera. Thought about Eleanor Finch, about the 97 seniors we'd helped, about Conrad in his cell reading my letter. Because no one should face their sunset alone, I said. That's all. Quinn nodded, stopped recording. Hazel's pencil scratched paper, soft sound, rhythmic, peaceful. A sound I'd learned to love over the past year. The sound of someone creating beside me, not performing for me. I stood between them. Left woman I met in a gold elevator when Vesper tried to buy her silence. Right grandson who gave evidence to police knowing it would destroy his parents. Two people I didn't know 15 months ago. Two people who loved me not for penthouse property or Bitcoin wallets, but for the aerospace engineer who calculated satellite trajectories and learned too late but not too late to calculate his own worth. I am 75 years old. I stand on the tallest tower I've ever known, looking down at a city I never planned to call home. To my left is the woman I met in a gold elevator. To my right is my grandson, preserving the legacy of an Alaskan brother I never met. Conrad thought I was too old to have anything left to live for. The truth is, I have never lived so much. And this sunset, it has long ceased to be solitary. The sun dropped below Manhattan's western edge, painting the Hudson River gold. Hazel's pencil stopped moving. Quinn lowered his phone. For 5 seconds, 3 people stood in silence, watching light fade into evening. Then Hazel's hand found mine, warm, real, chosen. Quinn moved to my other side close enough that our shoulders touched. And I understood this was never about revenge. It was about finding the people who see you when the sunset ends. The sky darkened from orange to purple to deep blue. Manhattan's lights began to flicker on millions of windows, millions of lives, millions of sunsets watched alone or together. I watched mine with 2 people who chose to stay. And that made all the difference. And to you listening to my story, remember this family should protect you, not exploit you. I made the mistake of ignoring the signs for too long. I wanted to believe Conrad came back out of love. I ignored 4 years of silence because loneliness made me desperate. Don't make my mistake. If something feels wrong, trust that instinct. Your gut knows before your heart wants to admit it. Protect yourself first. Forgive later if you must, but never ignore the warning signs. Stories like mine, stories of family betrayal and revenge, aren't just entertainment, they're warnings. You might have read similar family Reddit stories about elder exploitation, about manipulation and greed. But this isn't fiction meant to shock you. This is a lesson about protecting your dignity and your future. I believe God allowed me to survive this so I could help others facing family betrayal and revenge attempts. The Silas Foundation exists because others needed someone who understood. Your worth isn't measured by your bank account. Never let anyone, even family, convince you otherwise. If my story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Tell me what would you have done in my position. Have you ever read family Reddit stories that ended differently? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe stories of family betrayal and revenge deserve to be told, subscribe to Dad Silent Revenge. Your voice in the comments section matters. Thank you for staying until the very end. This story includes some fictional elements for reflection and learning, but the message, the warning about protecting yourself from exploitation is real. Take care of yourself.